Welcome, everyone, to every single sub-story in Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth. But first, let's get some background info out of the way for those unfamiliar with the series. If you want to skip this part though, or really any parts, there are timestamps in the description for each sub-story. But what even are sub-stories? Well, every game in this fantastic JRPG series developed by RGG Studios, along with its usually incredible main storyline, has a lot of side content like mini-games, challenges, and most importantly, sub-stories. These are like short, or sometimes actually quite long, self-contained stories featuring a wide variety of things, from the wackiest shenanigans you can fathom to absolutely heart-wrenching storylines, and sometimes even a combination of the two. A little bit more info, this is Ichiban Kasuga, an ex-yakuza from Japan, which is where the first two sub-stories take place, who takes a trip to Hawaii, which is where the rest of them are, for some business that I won't disclose for spoiler reasons. I'm gonna try my very best to avoid the main story in this video, aside from some unavoidable things like party members you unlock later on, but all the sub-stories will be spoiled, obviously. Alright, I think we're good now. With all that out of the way, sit back, relax, and enjoy. In the first sub-story, we come across some punks harassing a radio show host, so we decide to step in. After absolutely demolishing them, we talk to the lady and learn that she does a show called After 6 Junction on TBS Radio. This gives us access to the game's playlist feature, letting us play music or shows we unlock while we explore the city. And that's about it. This first one was pretty short. In sub-story number 2, we're just strolling along when we're met by this absolute freak who we swiftly take care of. After, we are reunited with Professor Morikasa, a character from Yakuza 7 who is the Sujimon Sensei. He tells us about Sujimon, which are called that because they make people feel super jittery. They're basically just the term used for all the enemies in the game. How he's researching them, and how he once again wants our help in filling out the Suji decks. When we let him know that we're going to Hawaii, he tells us that the place is crawling with Sujimon, with something called a Sujimon tournament as well. We are now tasked with once again dispatching all the Sujimon to be the very best like no one ever was. Before the sub-story ends, he alludes to a chance to settle the score in Hawaii, but that's a story for another day. In sub-story number 3, some guy comes out of nowhere on a bike and does a sick jump over us. He says he digs our vibe and tells us about the delivery service he works for called Crazy Delivery. Their whole shtick is that they deliver food in style, doing crazy stunts to give people a break from the dull and ordinary. A respectable goal. We start the minigame, which is actually pretty fun, as per usual with Yakuza minigames. Basically, we just collect food on the ground and bring it to customers, making sure we stop in the circle around them. And if we rack up a combo of tricks just before we complete the delivery, we get a nice point bonus. The goal is to score as many points as possible before the time runs out, and on this first attempt I got A rank, which isn't too bad. The guy was pretty impressed and gave us $30, ending the sub-story. I didn't return to this minigame very often after this, since there are way better ways of making money, but for what it's worth, it is a fun little side game. This sub-story is a little tied into the main story, so all you really need to know for this is that we're looking for a woman named Chitose. A homeless man overhears us talking about her and gives us a flyer that he used to call a woman also named Chitose, so we decide to give it a shot. This is not the Chitose we're looking for. Everyone is understandably confused, but some punks show up to tell us to stop yelling, which is when this Chitose tells them that she's from Poundmates, a system returning from Yakuza Like a Dragon where you can call upon Poundmates to help you in battle. It turns out that her name is Chitose Buster Holmes, the relative of a classic Yakuza character, Gary Buster Holmes. So we call her up and take these guys to Pound Town, making quick work of them, giving us access to Poundmates for any future battles we find ourselves in. In the fifth sub-story, while we're leaving Revolve, which is basically just our little hideout here in Hawaii, we meet this absolute baddie who seems to know pretty much everyone in the city. After fawning over Kiryu for a little bit, she tells us her name is Kay and that she works at Revolve. Since we're new in town and barely know anyone, she lets us know about Aloha Links, a simple little app that connects everyone on the island. How it works is, whenever we see someone with a smiley face icon above them, we can become their friends by waving at them. It doesn't end there though, because if we do this for the same person 4 times, we max out our friendship and become buddies. These can be ordinary people, but also like just straight up birds and stuff. I start out as a bronze member, but as I make more friends, I can improve my membership and become the most popular guy in Honolulu. In the next sub-story, we're walking down a path when we come across a developer-like man named Oka, who is the creator of the Street Surfer. He tells us about a promotion on his product, which is basically just a segue for faster travel, and its, well, unfortunate history of blowing up into smithereens. the developer's not exactly making it subtle what they're referencing. But after many tests, he can confirm that it is now flawless and perfectly safe to use. After a quick little test drive, we decided that this thing is absolutely worth making use of. But some guys came over to harass Oka, probably a little bitter about the whole blowing up situation, which is reasonable. So they start kicking the shit out of the thing. Luckily, Kasuga and Kiryu are there to stop them with a pretty easy fight. Oka decides it's probably wise to take that particular Street Surfer back to the lab because of the damage caused to it. Since they're free right now because of the promotion, we get our very own Street Surfer without paying a dime. However, it does cost money to recharge at these Oka chargers scattered around town. As Oka's leaving, this happens. That makes sense. In this sub-story, I got approached by a woman in the park asking if I'm the one she met on a matchmaking app, which I am not. But soon enough, another guy with scruffy hair and a beard shows up for her, so to be honest, you can't really blame her for the mistake. As they leave, they have nothing but praise for Mismatch. And I wonder who Mismatch could be. How convenient that the real Mismatch, or Machiko, was standing right behind us the whole time. She tells us that she's a legendary Hawaiian fortune teller, but she also admits that it's just a bunch of hokum and really a scam, which honestly I'm having trouble with not respecting. This is a little confusing though, as the couple earlier were just thanking her, which is when she shows us the app that she developed called Mismatch, Dating by Divination, which is really just this game's version of Tinder. The app is still in beta and the user base is still pretty low, especially with the amount of men on the app, so she says that we should try it out. Not without throwing some insane shade at Kasuga while she's at it. Without getting too far into the main story, suffice it to say Kasuga is down bad. So Machiko convinces him that joining the app is a good idea. She takes us to her office, aka a cafe, gives me a phone with the app on it, and we get going with it. There's various profile pictures we can choose from, we can edit our very own bio by setting keywords and an overall style to it, and 3 different tiers of membership that change who we're able to match with. Yo, it's your boy Ichiban Kasuga. Nobody's more fun than me, so let's get matching. I'm a hero, and it's what I was born to do. Everybody says I'm an alpha male. Lol, I love you know what. Take that to the bank. Oh, but I'll never say no to some gambling either. If you're wondering if you should message me, yes, I'm psyched to see who I'm gonna match with. Hell yeah, let's date. I started off with a basic subscription, only costing $10 per search, and chose the freakiest match available. The goal of the minigame is to fill the bar at the top to secure a date. The way we do this is by typing in the best possible response, matching the interest and energy of the other person, with a fun little game where you press the buttons in the correct sequence in a limited amount of time without making too many mistakes. I decided to just say Kasuga, which she was not impressed by. She says she doesn't like limp men, to which Kasuga responds, "Don't worry, I can perk up," trying to salvage my previous mistake. She asked me what I do for work, which, if you remember, my profile says hero. But instead of just saying I'm a hero, Kasuga adds on, "I'm gonna level up, be the very best," which I'm surprised worked as well as it did. Since we reached the first camera icon, we get a little something, a real life photo of a real life woman, which has become a staple in Yakuza games at this point when it comes to these type of minigames. Kasuga was very grateful for this photo. She asked what my idea of fun is, so I, of course, say the shared bliss of sensuality, which netted me 20 points. She seems to still have some doubts about me, so she asks if I really have what it takes to satisfy her, because she has very high standards. But Kasuga assures her she will not be disappointed. At this point, I got another hot pick, which is what the game actually calls it when it happens. Alright Kasuga, calm down. If the conversation wasn't already horny enough, she has a little thing for masochism, so I, of course, have to go along with it. It's at this point she asks how I'm feeling about her, and there's a quick game where I have to choose an emoji, which isn't easy. Before the conversation ends, I have the chance to make one last stand, pour my heart out, and secure the date with as many rapid-fire messages as I can send. Alright, it's time for the date, and I was catfished. We're back with Machiko and have a deep conversation about how our words reflect who we are. She then rants about how people hate on microtransactions and apps when she has the bills to pay. A little meta commentary from the devs here. And that's about it. I know I got catfished in this first mismatch adventure, but there actually are some pretty explicit videos that come from it that I probably shouldn't show on YouTube. It's not a Yakuza game without just an incredibly horny minigame, and this is InfiniteWealth's version of that. Honolulu has various trolley stations scattered around the city, and in substory number 8, while riding one of these trolleys, we meet a man named George taking some pictures of the beautiful Hawaiian scenery. We ask if we can take a peek at some, and George does not hesitate to let us see. After all, this is his art that he put his heart and soul into. What the hell are these? Huh? Ichiban is just as caught off guard as I am, but George says that these sickles are his specialty, that he is just a photographer of the obscene. He explains that it all started from one video where a guy just wearing a mask and underwear bothered some tourists, and now copycats are running rampant around the city. Our guy George is taking full advantage of the situation, taking pictures of them to hand over to the police in exchange for a quick payday. He snaps a photo of a sicko, registers the GPS data of that photo, and the police quickly arrive to arrest the sicko. Simple as that. He then offers to let us give it a whirl, which takes us to another new minigame, Sicko Snap. If you ever played Pokemon Snap, you know the drill. We ride one of these trolleys and try to get pictures of these sickos by centering them in the frame and zooming in on them, trying to meet the goal without running out of film. And these guys are doing all kinds of wacky shit, so you do have to react quickly in a lot of situations. There's even a special gold sicko that gives bonus points. This one for the sub-story was pretty easy, but there are more difficulties. As with most Yakuza minigames, it has way more depth than it probably should. Anyways, I didn't do too bad, only missing a couple, netting me an A rank. For our hard work, George rewarded us with a rejuvenation bolus and told us about his point system, which we can use to buy various items that I didn't really use too often, to be honest. He even gave us our very own camera so we can snap these sickos whenever we want. We said our goodbyes and he went off to scare the local children in his own way. In this sub-story, some kid offers us lemonade, and being the good guy that I am, I bought one. He told us he can even change the amount of lemon and sugar, so he's clearly running a pretty high-end business here. We took a drink, and it's pretty incredible stuff, so we asked more about his stand. He says it's his very own store, and he even built it all by himself. Tony's lemonade stand, he calls it. Tony tells us he keeps half the money he makes and gives the other half to his family. Kasuga wonders what he could be saving up for, and Tony reveals that he's actually saving up for a tiara for the lady who used to look after him before she moves away. It turns out Tony was an orphan, and this lady, Miss Mao, always looked out for him. She was even the one who taught him how to make lemonade. Heartwarming stuff. Eventually, one of his uncles took him in, so he couldn't see Miss Mao as often. Now she's getting married and moving away, so Tony is on a tight time limit to make enough lemonade to get her the tiara. So of course I offer to help him out with selling the lemonade. This takes me to a quick minigame where I have to give out some lemonade to the people who look like they want it within a 2-minute time limit. I also have to move very carefully so that I don't spill the drinks. This gave me immediate flashbacks to that one sub-story in Yakuza 3 where you have to deliver the ice cream without dropping it. We do this a couple more times, having to give it to more people each time, until some woman comes along and asks to have a cup. She likes it so much that she even offers to help out. She asks us to take a picture of her and Tony so that she can post it online, and the next day, Tony gets more customers than ever before. Turns out the woman was actually a massive influencer and got her fans to come by. By the time everyone's gone, Miss Mao herself shows up and tells Tony how great he's doing. But for some reason, Tony doesn't seem too pleased with all the success he's been seeing, so we decide to check up on him. It's revealed that his uncle, who he lives with, has been taking most of the money and abusing him. We cannot let this slide, and he decides to turn it into a brawl, in which we wipe the floor with him despite his insane dodging capabilities. Tony tells his uncle that all this time he's been saving up for a tiara from Miss Mao, and the uncle gives back the money, seeming to have a change of heart. The next time we see Tony is the day Miss Mao is leaving, and he doesn't have enough money for the tiara. Then all of a sudden his uncle shows up and gives back all the money he stole from him, saying he's actually been saving it for a rainy day instead of spending it on booze, even though he clearly has been working his ass off all day to scrape up some cash. Tony is finally able to buy the tiara, so we hurry to take a cab to the airport just before Miss Mao leaves. She puts it on, and they have a little heart-to-heart before saying goodbye. While strolling down the beach, Nancy, our pet crawfish from the last game in the franchise, wanted to explore around a little bit, so we let her while we take a quick nap. When we wake up, we find Nancy longingly gazing at an absolute baddie. I mean, look at that shell. The next time we find ourselves at the beach, Nancy decided to shoot her shot, and to put it lightly, it could have gone better. Kasuga cheers her up and suggests bringing a gift next time to make a good impression. So we went walking around and found these beautiful flowers that any crab would surely appreciate. But when we came back, we found the crab being harassed by some punks. We wouldn't make it fast enough to stop them just by running over. So we decided to try to throw Nancy over. I went full power and sent her flying. Perhaps a little too far. Doesn't matter though, because Nancy was able to scare them off and protect the hermit crab. Nancy gave the crab the flower and they hit it off from there. But we had to leave eventually. Somewhere in town, we overhear some guys talking about a crab named Olivia who lives in a wrecked ship called the Olivia. They decided that they were going to try to get their hands on this jewel to make some quick cash, and we put 2 and 2 together that the crab they're talking about is the one Nancy was talking to. So we rush over, only to find Olivia now living in a rusty can instead of the beautiful shell from earlier. Me and those guys got to her first. We went searching for them, and once we found them, Kasuga started pouring his heart out to them about what it's like to be at rock bottom and how it feels to have lost everything, which they did not care about. This leads to a fight that they swiftly lost, and we get the shell back. We give it back to her, but there's nothing to say that this won't happen again with a shell like that, so living in it might be too big of a risk. That's when Nancy shows up with a brand new shell, and Olivia chooses that one instead. And now we have 2 crustaceans to take care of. This also gave us access to a new pound mate, which is always nice. While exploring Honolulu, a chef pulls us aside and tells us that we're already running late, assuming that we're the guy he hired recently. We tell him he has the wrong person and that the other guy probably isn't coming since it's already been like an hour and a half. This means he can't open the restaurant today, which is even worse since it was fully booked. This guy's been running a one-man operation for so long by limiting how many tables are available, but this new hire would help him start serving a full house. We tell him that he'll probably need to turn people away if he really isn't coming to help, but the chef insists that we need to find backup. See, the perfect waiter would need the right face, eyebrows like curious caterpillars, a nose stout enough to withstand a knockout punch, eyes like the gray of fog, slinking in over alleyway trash bags. He's talking about me, isn't he? I give in, despite my lack of experience. The chef, Obi, gives us our uniform and we're just about ready to start our shift. But first he gives us the rundown on how we should greet guests by trying to match their mood. Next he shows us the menu which we have to memorize. Now we're ready to begin. Our first customer is feeling pretty cheerful, so we match that energy. The next one was a much more classy individual, so we go for a refined greeting. Finally, we have a family with young kids, so a friendly greeting should work well. Although Casca's idea of friendly might be a little over the top. Kid liked it though. Now we have to take their orders, and they do the thing where they switch up what they actually want like 3 times, so it's a little hard to keep track of all of it. In the end, the cheerful woman wanted ahi poke with not 1, not 2, but 3 hapias. The elegant man wanted mahi-mahi, and the customer in black switched up so many times just to revert back to his first order, which was lau and an acai bowl. And for some reason the family wasn't included in this section. I read them out to Obi, making sure to get the correct orders, and brought them out to the tables. Now before we continue, I'd like to formally apologize to any Hawaiians that might be watching me absolutely butcher the pronunciation of their local cuisine. When I got back, Obi asked me to bring out the lau to the family, so I had to remember which one it actually was. You know what? Let's see if you know which one it is. 3, 2, 1, ding ding ding, time's up. The correct option was the left one. Congrats to anyone who got that right. There is no prize. If you didn't, no worries, cause we got a round 2. Which one is the Kalua pig? 3, 2, 1, time is up. It was the center one. Finally, a man asked me what the owner's name is, which is, of course, Obispo. And when Obi comes over, he tells him that he wants to feature the restaurant in his magazine. When all said and done, Obi thanked me by giving me an employee meal, an item to increase my chef rank, and $300, which is quite a good haul this early on. But a couple seconds later, the original worker shows up. And how Obi confused Kasuga for this guy, I couldn't tell you. In this sub-story, we meet another tourist in Honolulu, just like us, and he seems to be in a bit of a pinch, so we decide to help him out. He tells us that his phone's busted, and now he's not able to find his hotel since everything about his trip was on it. He says the hotel is called Beachside Hotel, a name we've never heard before, but it's probably because we only just got here a little while ago. So, me and Sawai, which is his name by the way, go asking around, but nobody seems to know anything about it, until a very kind hula dancer comes up to us and gives Sawai a lei. We decide to ask her about the hotel, which she has also never heard of, but she does know a hotel called Seaside Hotel, which rings some bells in Sawai's head. So the hotel problem is solved, but before we leave, the hula dancer asks us for a small donation to support her dancing, which Sawai is eager to do, seeing as we never would have found the hotel if not for her. Then the hula dancer even offers to walk him to his hotel. Later on, we randomly come across Sawai again, and he wanted to show his thanks to me by treating me to a meal, which I wasn't about to refuse. On our way to the restaurant, Sawai accidentally bumps into a police officer who tells him that he was actually jaywalking earlier, which is grounds for a fine. Now, Sawai didn't do it on purpose, so the officer lets him off the hook. Instead, he asks him for a donation to the police department. Kasuga's a little skeptical of the whole situation, especially because Sawai definitely didn't jaywalk, but Sawai's insistent that he makes a donation, considering how chill the cop is being about it. Not even 2 seconds later, a woman comes up to us and hands Sawai a shirt telling him it's $50. Initially, Sawai refuses it, but she tells him that all profits go toward the poor in third world countries, which, how can you say no to that? While Kasuga is telling Sawai how sketchy the whole thing is, out of nowhere a parrot lands on his shoulder. When its owner comes to get it, the parrot says that it wants a picture. As confused as he is, Sawai decides to go along with it. The owner then asks for some money, $100 to be exact, to feed his parrot after all the hard work it did, which Sawai doesn't think twice about and hands over the cash. He says that all this stuff is part of the Hawaiian experience, which, okay dude. When we're at the restaurant, he thanks us not just for helping him find his hotel, but also meeting his special someone, which we correctly assume is that hula dancer from before. He says he fell for her at first sight and was grateful for all her kindness, even though that was probably just because he gave her a ton of money. He then opens up to us and tells us he quit his job as an ordinary businessman and he came to Hawaii to get away from it all. A difficult customer complained about him to his boss, which cost him a major deal for the company, causing all his relationships to be strained at work, and he's been afraid to speak to people ever since. This explains why he's so grateful to me and the hula dancers, since he finally felt like he was needed, even if only for a donation. The next time we see him, he's throwing more money at that hula dancer, and the other people watching make it clear that this has become a regular occurrence. We ask them about it, and they say she's definitely scamming people, and it's pretty common around these parts. We went up to him once the hula dancer left, and they seem to be closer, or at least on a first name basis. Her name's Kiana, by the way. He seems to be overjoyed by how things are going, but we can't keep watching this happen now that we know it's a scam for sure. But when we break the news to him, he says he's well aware of it already. Naturally, we ask him why he still goes along with it, and the truth is that he just wants to see her more. And the only time he gets to spend with her is when he visits for another leg. To make a long story short, he's down bad. He says that he likes to give her money because it makes her happy. Plus, there's gotta be a reason she needs the money if she's doing all this, which is reasonable. Then, we learn that Kiana's been listening to the whole thing. Later on, we find Kiana standing by herself in the rain. Then Sawai comes out of nowhere to give her an umbrella. Sawai then offers to make another donation, but for the first time, Kiana refuses, so Sawai heads out to avoid the rain. The next time we see them, Sawai is once again trying to give her some money, but Kiana asks him to stop coming to see her. This catches him off guard, and she says that it kills her every time she has to take someone's money, and runs away. Sawai gives chase, so we, of course, also give chase. We find Kiana in a parking lot surrounded by some buff guys trying to get money from her. She nervously tells them that she wants out and doesn't want to take money from people for them anymore. We learn that she's in debt to them, and she's been doing it to make her money back. When she continues to refuse, the guy's about to swing on her, but Sawai shows up last second to protect her. He goes on the whole, "you'll have to go through me" spiel, but gets absolutely clocked by him. That's where we step in, leading us to a pretty easy battle which changed their tune pretty quick. Kiana thanked us, but we tell her that she should really be thanking Sawai for putting his neck on the line for her. She apologizes for lying to him, and tells him that her parents left her when she was young, leaving all their debt with her as well. This group of guys gave her a way to make money, telling her that it would help others, which was what led her to the whole scamming business. She wanted out, but was already in too deep. She eventually became numb to the guilt of scamming people, but that changed when Sawai came into her life. The guilt became so crushing, so she ran, which ended up putting Sawai in danger as well. Sawai tells her that he doesn't mind that she lied to him, since she still showed him kindness, which he wasn't used to back at work and home. They hug it all out, thank me for helping them out, and decide that they'd work together to pay off her debt. As a parting gift, they gave me a happy lay, and as they left, they helped out a lady who was in the exact same position as Sawai at the start of the sub-story, looking for a hotel named Beachside. Over on the beach, we came across a group of guys just finding a much more extravagant guy for some reason. However, the flashy man seemed very disappointed with the amount of wind being generated by these fans, saying if you can't move my hair, you'll never move hearts. I decide to step in and ask just what is going on, and he tells me he needs a storm. Not very helpful, but we're getting somewhere. He explains that he is Kazami Evolution, the god of rock, and he's here to film his new music video, obviously. So he brought out his team to Hawaii to capture his true vision for the video. He envisioned a roiling, raging ocean, but clearly there is nothing raging about the ocean right now. Hence the fans being used to create a storm artificially. Well, it seems like these are pretty harsh working conditions. The employees seem to enjoy it, and they truly want to see Kazami succeed. They decide to keep at it, otherwise this entire Hawaii trip would have been for nothing. But Kazami does ask me for some help, that if I ever come across any weather-changing devices or wind magic to let him know. He's pretty desperate, so I really had no choice but to help out. I mean, I want to help, but where am I gonna find something that can change the weather? Oh wait, what's this guy doing? We found this old man on the floor after hurting his back carrying some sort of box. So we carry him and his stuff over to a bench, and he lets us know that his name's Thomas, and the box is full of his work tools. When I opened it, there was a fancy looking hat, a necklace, and even a staff, so I naturally assumed that he was some sort of street performer. That's way off though, because this guy tells us that he's actually a shaman. He describes them as people who foretell prophecies, conduct sacred ceremonies, and commune with elemental spirits. But Thomas isn't an ordinary shaman. See, he's actually a wind shaman. See where this is going? He tells us about all his previous work as a shaman, and says that even though he can do stuff like see the future and talk to dead people, his requests are weirdly all wind related. So I asked him if he could possibly conjure up a storm for our rockstar friend. He says he could, but with the state his back is currently in after the fall he had, he says that we would have to perform the ritual ourselves. He says he'll serve as the catalyst, and after we summon the spirits, he can ask the spirits to create the storm. So I take all the supplies over while he makes his preparations. We introduce Kazami to Thomas the Wind Shaman, and even though Kazami is pretty skeptical of the whole thing, he doesn't have a whole lot else to go off of. I get my outfit on, and if I follow his directions, we should have our storm in no time. First off, we must pay our respects to the land and the sea with the prayer of supplication, which consists of raising our arms, kneeling down, and bowing 20 times. Thomas can feel the spirits coming already, and now we have to hold their attention by extending our arms and getting sexy by shaking our hips 20 times. Now that these freaky ass spirits are enamored by us, all that's left is to spin 30 times and shout, "Come on! Big storm!" And by some miracle, it actually worked. Kazami and his team got to filming and it couldn't have gone better. Everything was going poorly and they were just about ready to give up, but we were able to make it happen. Kazami says that he'll even write a song about Thomas the Wind Shaman. He gives us a boombox accessory and left to get ready for their flights back home. But after they left, the storm kept going, so Kasuga decided to try this. And it worked. Even though it was just Thomas with a big fan and a remote all along, one can have some wonder in his life. Also on the beach, we see a schoolgirl peeking around some surfboards, so we decided to ask her what's going on. But she got startled the moment we started talking to her. She dropped a letter, which seemed to be pretty important to her, but luckily it was fine. She, on the other hand, was not. She tells us that she was waiting to confess her love to a classmate. Her senpai told her the legend that if you give your letter to someone buried in the sand, they'll fall for you. So things are making a lot more sense now. The guy she likes, Tanabe, is getting buried right now, but she can't give him the letter since her clothes are all dirty. Yo, my bad. She's worried that he'll be gone by the time she's all washed, and since it is our fault that she's in this position, we decide to help her out. But how we can help is the question, considering how we don't have a spare high school girl's uniform. I mean, if we did, we'd have bigger issues on our hands. She offers for us to deliver the letter to Tanabe for her, which you would think would sorta invalidate the legend, but she says that they just have to receive the letter while buried in the Aloha Beach, and it doesn't matter who directly gives it to them, which is convenient for us. So we get going, but not before she tells us her name is Hitomi and gives us a picture of Tanabe. Looks like he has short hair and glasses, which should be enough for us to find him. But when we get to where he's supposed to be, we see this. Well, we know he's somewhere in this group, so we start asking around. The first guy we ask tells us not exactly where he is, but he does know that he's not next to a watermelon. The next guy tells us that he's in between the yellow and red parasols. Next, we learn that he's not in the left-hand row, if we're facing the ocean. Lastly, he's facing his friend Sato, so whoever he's looking at is also looking at him. Using all this information, I guessed it must be this guy. He seemed thrilled to receive a love letter, so we hurried over to Hitomi. Hitomi asked him out, and he says yes. Funnily enough, he wrote a letter of his own to give to her, but he couldn't actually find her at all. Seems like the legend was actually true. They thanked me for help, and now Kasuga is getting all sorts of ideas on how to make use of this legend. We're about to go for a swim when we see some men harassing a woman on the beach, so we step in to help her out. They weren't too pleased with my cock blocking, so we got into a fight, and even though the entire party was drunk as hell, they were absolute light work. She thanks us, and unbeknownst to us, we had an onlooker, someone admiring us. This very white guy rushes up to us with a group of people saying, "Oni-san, you're the real thing, the modern Japanese samurai." We're in for a rough one this time. He asks for our name, which we tell him, and he says he's Nathan, a director at a local Hawaiian TV station, which explains the camera crew with him. He tells us he seeks out Japanese tourists for interviews and travelogues in a show called Samurai May We Walk Together. We ask a follow-up question. Why? And it's because he loves Japanese culture, and he wants to talk to real Japanese people. Kasuga says he's kind of like a Japanese otaku, which he agrees with. He says he's most interested in Japanese movies, which is fair enough, Japan has made some fire movies. He really knows his stuff as well, but every time he earns some credibility, he says something like, "How subarashi," and ruins the whole thing. He has to interview us, and Kasuga decides to go along with it. Before we begin, he tells us that the views of the show have been dwindling, but all he needs from us is to simply enjoy ourselves and show our Japanese spirit, and in return, we'll get a handsome payday. In the first segment, he takes us to a restaurant with 3 dishes arranged on a table in front of us, and he tells us we can only choose one to show the struggle of a samurai. So what do we have here? A perfectly grilled mahi-mahi, some Kahlua pig, and cold rice and Japanese barn millet. I chose the mahi-mahi because, I mean, who would choose cold rice over these other beautiful dishes? And it was pretty good according to Kasuga, but the crew was not happy with this choice. Nathan, disheartened, told us he doesn't understand how a Japanese man didn't choose the cold rice. It's clear that they have a pretty narrow view of Japanese culture, so I should adjust for the next segments to get them the footage that they want. In between segments, I asked Nathan if he's ever been to Japan, but it turns out he's never left America. Matter of fact, growing up, he rarely ever left his room. It started from getting bullied at school, and as he stayed inside more, the outside looked further and further away. It got to the point where he dropped out of school and just stayed in watching TV all day. Until one night, he caught a samurai movie on the air. It was amazing, and he admired their honor and loyalty. It was so beautiful it made him cry, and he decided that he wanted to live like that too. He even got the courage to stand up to his bullies, and even though he still got his ass beat, the courage was there. So Japanese cinema essentially gave him another chance of life, which is why he's so fascinated by it, and became a director. But then suddenly it started raining. Little did I know the second segment had already started. Nathan gives me the choice between an umbrella and a fukamigasa. We'll go with it. Considering how the last segment went, I chose the hat instead of the umbrella, which got the crew fired up. The next segment took us to a dartboard, and all we had to do was play darts against this woman. Okay, simple enough. But the woman had to make a choice between regular old darts and shurikens. She, of course, chose the normal darts, leaving me with the shurikens, and things didn't go so well. Since we lost, we had to face the consequences, like a true samurai would. So, we're given yet another choice, seppuku or yubitsume. So either I stab myself in the stomach or chop a finger off. This was Kasuga's breaking point, and he told Nathan that he wasn't a yakuza or a samurai, and that Japanese people don't cut their fingers off just for losing at darts. This actually caught Nathan off guard, as though it is normal to cut off fingers like this. So Nathan decides to go with another approach to punishment. Now that we've got quite a bit of footage, he takes us to the beach to go snorkeling with a bamboo shoot for the finale. But when we got there, some guy named James stopped us. Him and Nathan went to film school together, and James is now a big-time Hollywood director. Turns out he's shooting a movie on the beach. But it's clear that they're not on the best of terms, and James starts dissing Nathan for his love of Japanese culture. He then went on to say that people want epic sci-fi battles against beautiful backdrops with cutting-edge CG, not samurai movies. James doesn't seem to actually respect the art of cinema and just does what's popular, while Nathan truly loves cinema with all his heart. And look, I'm definitely on Nathan's side, but he makes it harder and harder to root for him when he says shit like, "It's Kurosawa, you baka." Nathan gets so heated that he tries to swing on James, which didn't go to plan, but we were there to back him up. Kasuga tells him that he shouldn't be mocking things that mean so much to someone else, and that there's nothing wrong with having things that inspire you. This took us to another fight which we handedly won. This only strengthened Nathan's admiration for Kasuga, but that got him down on himself, disappointed he couldn't defend himself. But Kasuga encourages him, saying how he's just like the heroes in the movies, getting back up after being knocked down, and that he's a fine samurai. Nathan also acknowledged he may have been enjoying Japanese culture on a superficial level, admitting that he wanted to pretend every Japanese person was some cartoon hero. He said he felt inspired after meeting us, and is going to continue his dream of making movies just like Kurosawa, instead of giving up on that. He gave us a classic samurai gift, and overall it was a very heartwarming conclusion. We start the next sub-story by seeing someone drowning in the ocean, so we hurry over to help, but a lifeguard got there first. The lifeguard asked us to help him carry the guy back to shore, so we do. We got him back safely and he'll be alright. He says he couldn't have saved him without us though, and also tells us his name is Raymond. And thus begins the Beach Guardian sub-stories. It's clear Raymond's quite well known by the locals, showing that he takes his lifeguard job seriously. Kasuga notices that the beach is pretty busy and asks if it's tough to watch over it all, which it is, but he says that there just aren't enough people out there made of real lifeguard material. It takes courage, integrity, and fitness to be able to tame that magnificent blue bitch when she tries to claim a life. Hearing all this, Kasuga offers to try helping out as a lifeguard sometime. Raymond says he needs all the help he can get, so he gets us started by looking around for signs of heat stroke, especially on a hot day such as this. He gave us the water to give to others, and we got going. All we had to do was look for people looking dizzy or out of it in any way and give them some water. We had 10 bottles to hand out and 3 minutes to do so. We managed to do it in half that time, meeting some pretty interesting individuals along the way, and reported back to Raymond. He was pretty impressed and gave us our resurrection bullets as a reward. We talked about how brutal the beach can be to people, but he says he does it because he loves seeing smiling faces on the sand, which is very respectable. Lifeguards are truly doing some important work, and it's good to have passionate people like Raymond doing the job not many people are up to. Next time we see Raymond, some thugs are yelling at him while he tells them that they can't drink on the beach and need to follow the rules. They walk away, but they leave a can on the ground, so we confront them about it and tell them to have a little more respect. Raymond thanks us and tells us that he runs into those types of people all the time. He's worried that they might end up harming the regular law-abiding beachgoers. After seeing how much Raymond is dealing with right now, we decide to pitch in and help again. Before he can give us a task to work on, a woman comes up to us and tells us she lost track of her daughter. The girl's name is Emmy, and she's in a red swimsuit with a straw hat and blue ribbon, which should be enough information for us to find her. We went searching for a bit, and once we found someone that matched the description of Emmy, we talked to them and got it right. Turns out she just got distracted and started following a hermit crab. We took her back to her mom, and Raymond tells us that this is a pretty common occurrence. Almost immediately after, another woman comes up to us saying her son Billy went missing. He's wearing white swimwear and an orange baseball cap, so we got to searching and found him pretty quickly. When we bring him back to his mom, he reluctantly agrees to stay close to her. Raymond tells us that kids are always getting distracted by things on the beach, and that their curiosity can lead to trouble, which is why lifeguards are so essential. This sort of situation hits especially close to home for Raymond, since as a kid he came to this very beach, got lost, and even sprained his leg, but a lifeguard rescued him. He said it was the most incredible feeling he's ever had, and he wants to deliver that sensation of safety and relief to others who need it. He recognized that most kids probably just forget about their experiences with lifeguard, but some also feel inspired just like he was on that day. Now knowing a little more about Raymond, we say bye for now until the next time I help him out. And that time is now. This time he tasked us with trash cleanup. Unfortunately, we couldn't get to that right away since a thief runs by after stealing someone's wallet. We have a little chase sequence, and when we catch up, we're able to take the wallet and give it back to the woman. Raymond tells us this happens quite often, especially in places with a lot of tourists, like the beach. He then goes on to say that the beach would be in good hands if we went full-time as a lifeguard. It's nice of him to say, but we have a lot on our plate right now with the main story, so we can't do that. Since we're a little thirsty after chasing that guy, Raymond goes to get a cold drink for us. But after he's gone for longer than it should take, we decide to go check up on him. When we make it there, those thugs from the previous substory are back with a vengeance to cause up a ruckus. Their plan is to knock out Raymond, throw him behind the juice cart, and piss all over the beach. This is when I decided to step in, and Kasuga told them about how lifeguards don't have it easy, and dropped this hard-ass line: lifeguards clean up trash. And from the looks of it, I've got work to do. Oh! We got into a fight, and despite being heavily outnumbered, we came out on top with cheers and adoration from the beachgoers. They thank me, and especially thank Raymond for all the hard work he does for them. After Raymond gives us an accessory as a thank you gift, Kasuga reflects on how vital lifeguards are to the beach. Oh, and it turns out that Raymond has inspired someone to take up the role of a lifeguard, just like him when he was younger. Raymond leaves to go help someone who sprained their ankle, like the true guardian of life that he is. Just like most of these sub-stories, this one started on the beach, where I found a very nice looking chair that I decided to take a quick nap on. But when Kasuga woke up, there was just a bird chilling in his hair. I tried encouraging it to fly away, but it just kept pecking me, so we'll be sticking together for a while it seems. Looking around, there was a nest, probably the bird's, on the ground. It doesn't look like it was blown away, so it was probably attacked, which is why the bird has taken to living in Kasuga's hair. We could try finding its mom, but where would we even look? I decided to go grab something to eat while keeping an eye out for any birds that could be its mom. Before we left, Kasuga decided to name the bird Joseph. For some reason, we needed food for the bird as well, which we can get from the ABC store. The issue is though, we have to get there first, with the bird on our head. The movement was kind of similar to when we were holding the lemonade in the Tony sub-story, and we had to make it to the store within 3 minutes, avoiding people and sumo wrestlers for some reason. I ran into one of them on my first try, but on my second, despite going the wrong way, I made it with plenty of time to spare. When we got there, the worker was able to get me just what I needed for the bird, so we went back outside to enjoy it. Once Joseph was finished eating, we went back to searching for its mother. Luckily, we weren't looking for Lon, or even at all, since the mom just flew right to us. But with it came some men carrying guns and saying that they were going to protect it. We put 2 and 2 together and determined it was these guys who knocked down Joseph's nest and separated the birds. The poachers revealed that they were going to use the bird for taxidermy, which we can't let happen. So we got into a fight in which we absolutely decimate them. They run away, but I make sure that they agree to stop their poaching. Well, the mother and son are reunited, but Joseph still wants to stay with me. So I take them both to Revolve, where I give them a nest that they can come to whenever they want, so nobody can try to hurt them again. But wait, something's in my hair again. In this sub-story, Revolve's bartender sent us to this place called Julie's Gearworks, where we met Julie, the owner. This is the place where we can craft and upgrade weapons, which I used all throughout the game. She took a look at the bat I've been using for most of this time, called me cringe, and offered to fix up my bat to be way stronger. So I gave her the required materials and she got to work, yielding a much stronger and, more importantly, cooler looking bat. I just wish there was some way to test it out. Oh look, a thug just basically asking for a beating. He got lost and Julie told us that she really only trusts people that the bartender trusts, since she's renting out the space from him. She says that we can come back anytime, but we're gonna need our own materials for crafting, which is fair. And that's about it. This sub-story was mainly just introducing Julie's Gearworks to us. But don't worry, that's not the last we're gonna see of Julie. While strolling the streets, we saw some fire dancers performing for a crowd. But when we took a closer look, hang on, is that who I think it is? Yo, Ikari from Yakuza Likeadragon. He was a student at Onobara Vocational School back in Yokohama, but it looks like they have a branch here in Hawaii now. This guy is a vocational school legend, having earned over 200 certifications. He asked what I was doing in Hawaii, throwing some shade my way while he's at it, so I just told him it's personal business. I asked the same thing to him, and he said he finally got a job here in Hawaii at this very vocational school. Good for him, I suppose. But it doesn't make sense why he's at the Hawaii branch instead of the Yokohama branch. And all he told me was man and woman things. See, he had a little thing for the receptionist back there. So Kasuga guesses that he asked her out, got rejected, and had to come here because of how awkward it was. Really hit the nail on the head with that one. He was in his feelings a little bit, so I changed the subject to fire dancing, cause what was that all about? He just said it was for advertising and publicity. And believe it or not, he's actually a fully certified fire dancer in Hawaii. He tells us that there's a promotion going on to expand their student base and suggested I enroll. He made a somewhat convincing argument, so I figured I'd go along with it. Before we get the chance to say hi to anyone, Ikari reveals he is once again infatuated with the receptionist, whose name is Laura, by the way, if you couldn't tell from Ikari's greeting. I'd also like to point out, why is he moving like that? We go up to her and she tells us that our enrollment fee is waived due to the promotion, so all she needed was my name. Ikari makes it clear that it was him who recruited me, which I'm sure Laura is very impressed with. She gives us a quick rundown of how all this works. Basically, they offer certification exams that can be helpful in finding jobs or careers, but the self-improvement and character building are just as important. In terms of the game, these exams can boost my personality stats by a lot, giving me nice bonuses in battle and that type of stuff. We do have to pay for each exam, and if we fail, we can always just retake it. But the first exam is free, so here we go, pop quiz. Which of the following volcanoes and famous tourist spots is named Leahi in Hawaii? Diamond Head, Haleakala, Mauna Loa, or Kilauea? Next, what does the ukulele's name mean? Flowing hair, beckoning darkness, jumping flea, or creaking neck? Now, which is an image of a lei? Question 4, what's this flower called? Plumeria, hibiscus, sunflower, or sweet osmanthus? And finally, what does ahi mean? Octopus, Pacific bluefin tuna, salmon, or skipjack tuna? Alright, let's see how I myself did. Damn it. One right is crazy. That was trash. Anyway, here's all the answers for those participating. Everyone was encouraging me after my frankly embarrassing failure, but good thing I can always try again. Ikari tells me he's always available to help, which is when I promptly decided to take my leave. But this place will definitely come in handy in the future. Right after I was done taking a picture with these buff dudes, I came across some thugs harassing a store owner, calling him a washed-up comedian named Espresso Mameoka. Apparently he got blackballed for taking some shady gigs and had the catchphrase, "back to the grind." They egged him on a little longer until I stepped in, which they did not like. So I rolled a tire at them, which seemed to do the trick as they scurried away. He took me into the store and gave me a cup of coffee, which Kasuga was quite impressed with. I asked him about the whole comedian thing, and he told me he performed as Espresso Mameoka a long time ago. He even did his catchphrase for me. He said he actually started as a doubles act with his partner Americano Sorata, forming Cafe Soramame, which is where the name of the store comes from. They met from working part-time at the same coffee shop, where they would come up with jokes. The same night they would later perform them at open mics. But they weren't really making it anywhere, so they went their separate ways and haven't seen each other since. Kasuga asks about the catchphrase, and he tells us that they did it together, but it only went viral from some old videos that got shared after they already broke up. The videos only showed Mameoka, so he got the credit for it. But his moment in the spotlight was short-lived, as his agency dropped him due to some allegations that he was involved in underworld work, which he clarifies is untrue. Some articles accused him of doing private shows at yakuza-backed parties, and these rumors got bigger and bigger until it finally pushed him to retire from comedy. That's when he decided to move to Hawaii to have a fresh start making coffee. We once again compliment his coffee, and he says we can stop by anytime we like. But as we're leaving, we saw some guy with a camera supposedly taking pictures of the shop. He ran away before we could even ask questions, so we just let it go for now. Next time we came back to Cafe Soramame, we found it covered in papers and journalists surrounding it, telling Mameoka to come on out. They're accusing him of some pretty serious stuff, like being affiliated with the mafia, so he pokes his head out to say he's done nothing wrong. These rumors seem to have made their way back to him, all across the ocean. So I checked my phone and sure enough, there's countless articles about him. There's even a picture of him with those two thugs from earlier. The journalists continue to pressure him, so I decide that enough is enough and confront them about it. To me, this looks a lot more like intimidation than journalism. Tell him, Kasuga. We threatened them with calling the cops, and they got out of there soon enough. We show Mameoka the article, and eventually we make the connection to the picture and the weird guy with the camera we saw last time. One of the journalists, named Fumita, told us someone tipped him off, and that someone was likely the guy with the camera. So we decided to go looking for this Fumita guy. But I mean, he's like a needle in a haystack. How are we gonna find him in this big city? Oh look, we found him. We catch him talking to some shady guys in an alley, including the camera guy. Seems like they're intentionally trying to ruin Mameoka's reputation by spreading these rumors. Turns out they were the ones making the fake articles. So I reveal myself and go off on them. They're trying to ruin this one guy's life, and for what? He's only just gotten back on his feet after his first smear campaign, and now they followed him all the way from Japan to crush his reputation once again. They then threatened me with the idea of writing an article on me with the headline, "Humiliated humorist, hairball henchman harasses the helpless and heartless hush-up." This takes us to another fight and another easy win for us. Only after do we recognize the camera guy from the photo Mameoka had in his shop. But what was his name again? Mameta? Oh, my bad, bro. Yeah, that's right, Sarada. Point is, he was Mameoka's partner. We asked him why he did all this, and told him that Mameoka is still, to this day, wishing him well. That doesn't seem to mean much to him, though, and it's clear he holds a grudge against him. He truly wants to make him suffer. He tells us that he wrote all the material for the comedy act, and took it way more seriously than Mameoka, even coming up with the back to the grind line. He went into debt after they split up, while Mameoka absolutely blew up online using his gag. And you know what? I can kinda see where he's coming from. It's messed up to try to ruin someone's life like he is, but I always hate it when people are stealing credit for things that they didn't come up with. So that's why he started this entire smear campaign on Mameoka. But then Mameoka himself shows up, having heard all that. He says he's right, and it should have been Sarada getting all the credit. Mameoka always had a feeling Sarada was involved, but he didn't do anything about it. Sarada asks him why he didn't, and he says that he just couldn't. He said Sarada was way more talented and passionate than him, and that he only got lucky all because he pulled him into comedy. There was no way he would have tried to get back at him. Sarada says that he should have tried to get revenge on him instead of trying to protect him like he did. Mameoka still looks back fondly on those days of comedy, and a part of him has been missing ever since they split up. He says he'll forever be grateful for Sarada. He even named the store the same name as their act in hopes of Sarada hearing about it and stopping by. This brought Sarada to tears, as he profusely apologized for his acts of jealousy. They both acknowledged their wrongdoings and settled on a way to let go of all the pain and regret. Bring back Cafe Soramame. The business is thriving now that this dynamic duo is back together, and they give me a special cup of coffee. They call it the Ichiban Blend, named after me, and it's going on the menu. They are truly back on the grind. We overheard these two people in the middle of a conversation, and it looks like the woman is comforting the man for something to do with seeing someone off. She tells him the best thing to do is just see them off with a smile, which sets something off in the guy. Whoever they're talking about is leaving forever, and she's telling him to smile? He runs away, telling her to leave him alone. So naturally, my nosy ass decides to follow them. When I find the girl, she's next to a flower bed looking for something specific. We go up to her and ask what she's looking for, and she tells us a flower called a plumeria, a blue one in specific. You know what? Earlier in my playthrough of the game, I came across a tree with a bunch of blue flowers. Maybe that's what she's talking about. She asked us for some help finding them, so I ask her what they're for if she's in such a rush. She tells us that she's trying to craft a lei of blue plumerias. Apparently, there's an urban legend that if you give your crush a lei of blue plumerias, your love will come to pass. It's a Hawaiian tradition she learned from her grandmother. Kasuga correctly assumes she wants to give it to that guy from earlier, which catches her off guard that we know about him. She goes on to tell us that Yuri, the boy, has someone he really admires, and she wants to help him by making the lei. Turns out she didn't actually want to give it to Yuri because she has a crush on him, but she wants to help him with someone that he has a crush on. She makes it very clear that she and Yuri are just friends. She's known him ever since they were little, and he's always been a generally positive guy in contrast to his recent negative behavior. See, there's an older woman that Yuri met in dance class named Jessie that he likes, but she's moving to Seattle for work soon, which is where his sadness is coming from. She didn't know how to help him, so she had the idea that if he gave Jessie the lei, Jessie would be charmed and want to keep in touch, and Yuri would finally be happy again. This is enough convincing for Kasuga to offer help, so me and Aina, which is her name by the way, go looking for that tree we found earlier. But when we got there, the last thing you would expect was going on right in front of the tree. There's a sumo show right in the middle of the park for some reason. They say it's a tradition that every year after the big tournament in Japan, the Hawaiian sumo come back and put on an exhibition for them. They were getting way too close to the tree for our liking, so we told them to time out for a bit, which the spectators did not appreciate. We asked them to move somewhere else away from the tree, but they said absolutely not, and told us that if we wanted them to move, we'd have to get through them. So I got through them, simple as that. We told them why we wanted to protect the flowers, and they were pretty chill about it in the end. They even invite us to a rematch in a sumo tournament, but Kasuga's not all too thrilled about that idea. She got plenty of flowers, but she still needed a few more, so we decided to split up for a bit to find more. We found some more flowers up north, but we got a call from Aina, and she said that Jessie is leaving a little sooner than expected. And by a little sooner, she means tonight. So we met back up at the art walls, and she started working on the lei. Judging by how hard she's been working to make this lei, she must really care about Yuri. Kasuga told her that not many could do what she's doing, and she says that she knows Yuri won't make a move without help from her, which is how it's always been. While making the lei, Aina is absolutely gassing Yuri up, listing off green flag after green flag. She asked us if all men have a thing for older women, just out of curiosity. I chose to say yes, and Kasuga gave a way more detailed response than expected, saying there's nothing like the sex appeal of an adult. They seem so experienced and incisive. The confidence they acquire with age makes their every move lure you in. They accept you for who you are because they're independent, and every so often, you catch a glimpse of innocence that makes it all the better. Alright dude, this response seemed to get her down on herself, but at least I got some style boost from it. Kasuga clarifies that not every guy thinks like that, and he got a little carried away. Just an awkward situation overall. Anyways, moving on. Kasuga drops some wisdom that if you like someone, that means there's something about them you admire, no matter the age. You know, if I didn't know any better, I think Aina's a little jealous that Yuri has a crush on Jessie. But let's focus up and hurry to get the lei over to him before Jessie leaves. Yuri deserves to be happy, more than anyone she's ever known, so let's do this. We find Yuri on a bench, feeling down on himself, instead of going to see Jessie off. Aina tells him that if he doesn't tell Jessie how he feels, he'll regret it forever. She pulls out the lei, which seems to confuse him a little bit. She tells him to give it to Jessie and tell her how he feels, and Yuri, still confused, chases after her. When we got to the bus station, there are no women in sight, just some guys sitting on the bench. Guess she already left. But then Yuri walks up to the guy and says hi, calling him Jessie. Turns out Jessie is his dance school teacher, and Yuri has some pretty high praise for him. Plus, he's already married with children. Jessie apologizes for having to leave, but he gives Yuri his address in Seattle if he's ever in the area. Yuri thanks Aina for pushing him to say goodbye, but is still wondering what to do with the lei. Aina explains that she thought he was in love with Jessie, which Yuri finds pretty hilarious. Kasuga pitches in, telling him how hard Aina worked to make the lei. Yuri says Aina's always been like that, the type to do everything she can for people. He says she's clumsy in that way, but that's why she makes him smile, and why he wants to be there to catch her when she trips. Oh, we got some romance going on. Aina says she thought he needed the lei, but she made a mistake. Then, in a dramatic turn of events, Yuri says, I think I do need it actually, and puts the lei on her. Kasuga said it best himself. If there were ever two people who cared more for each other than themselves, it's you two. Over by a shave ice shop, we found a man desperately asking for the biggest shave ice they have. No flavor, just the ice. This confused both me and the employee, but he gave him the ice anyways. As soon as he got the ice, he just threw it on himself. I decided to ask him if he was overheating or something, but he was pretty dismissive of me. He was muttering to himself that there's not enough time, and that if the ice were more powdery, it'd turn into snow. And that was that, until eventually I ran into him again at a different shave ice spot. This time, the employee was a lot less willing than the other guy to give him the flavorless ice he needs, saying that he's heard from other shops that he's been going around buying ice and throwing it on himself. He essentially tells him to beat it, but the old man insists that he's being serious. Out of pure curiosity, I decided to talk to him to find out what he's actually doing. Cause all I know right now is that it has something to do with turning ice into snow. He says it's not like he was trying to quench his thirst or anything, but it's for his wife, to show her some freshly fallen snow. See, his wife's sick and can't even get out of bed anymore, but she could go at any time now, so he's been asking for something that he could do for her. She told him, "I want to see the snow with you again." He tells me they have some fond memories with the snow, like on their honeymoon in Japan, where they saw snow for the first time. He had always promised that they would go back someday to see the snow, but that never ended up happening. He never made that much money, so he was working extra hard for his family, but he never knew how she felt about that. It was only after he retired and actually was able to start making plans that they realized just how sick she was. It was already too late. After she gave him everything she had to give, he feels like he can't provide her anything in return. He thought that it'd be easy to show her snow again, and that would make her happy. But maybe it's really just about him feeling like he did something for her. The whole snow thing is proving to be more challenging though, especially in a place like Hawaii. Well, this explains what he was doing with all the shaved ice. Kasuga, being the good guy he is, decides he's going to help him no matter what. We tell him to go be with his wife while we think of something, and he tells us his name's Orlando. We part ways for now, but now we have to actually figure out how to get some snow in Hawaii. On a seemingly unrelated note, over in the Anaconda shopping center, a woman lost control of her stroller on an escalator, and now the stroller is absolutely barreling down. Mind you, the kid is still inside it. We try our very best to catch up to it in this chase sequence, and it eventually stops in this parking lot. But when we look inside, For those who don't know, this is Patriarch Gondawara, another classic Yakuza character. The last time Kasuga and him met was in Yakuza Like a Dragon, where there was a whole debacle with finding baby formula, where we found him and his clan dressed up like babies. We don't need to get into details, but there was some freaky stuff going on, and that's that. Turns out he and his clan are just on vacation, getting pampered in paradise, when his stroller just went out of control. We were about to leave, but he asked us to wheel him back to his nanny, so we got going with him. But before we could get far, an entire gang rolls up in their own strollers, thinking that we're kidnapping a baby, also known as their boss. We expected Gondawara to back us up here, but he was out like a light, so we had to fend for ourselves in a surprisingly tough fight that we just barely won. Once we were done, Gondawara conveniently woke up to scold his crew for fighting me. He orders them to get him some fresh milk, but since that's hard to come by around here, he'll settle for some condensed milk topped with shaved ice. They go over to the food truck next to us, but guess who they ran into in line? Orlando. We all sat down and Orlando explained his current situation. His wife's condition has only worsened and tonight might be her last. Kasuga took this news pretty hard since he was supposed to find a solution for him. He slammed down his milk and shave ice and, by some miracle, it formed something that coincidentally looked a lot like snow. Turns out some of Gondawara's crew's diaper absorbent was reacting with the water from the shave ice. It must have gotten there during the fight and one of their diapers just ripped. Diapers have this cottony powder in them to absorb liquid, and once it's wet, it fluffs up like snow. This couldn't be more perfect, and now we have something to show the man's wife. We'll need more diapers, but Gondawara has plenty to give us. We ask him if he's sure about it since they're important to him, but he tells me that there's still men of honor behind this fantasy of theirs, and they respect people's dying dreams. He's definitely earned some more respect in my books, considering he hasn't been the most honorable man in the past. So, Orlando leaves to go be with his wife, while we get set up outside to let it snow. Orlando tells his wife all about us and reflects on how he treated her, asking her if he was ever a prince to her. As he's opening the window, Ellie tells him that he was always her prince, ever since they met. There were definitely times where he was gone longer than she wanted, but she always felt him with her, no matter where he was. She always knew he was working so hard because he loves her and wanted to provide for her. She never truly felt alone. Then, suddenly, she says, "It's beautiful."
ありがとう、春日さん、組長さん。
Up on the roof, we're all working our asses off, scooping all the snow off the building. Gondawara is truly committed to seeing this through, and he's even willing to use his own diaper to make the snow. Back in the room, Ellie loves it and tells Orlando he's not only a prince, but also a magician. He asks if he can do anything else for her, but this is enough. He's already made her the happiest woman in the world. He begs that there's something he can do for her, and she tells him she has one last wish, to see him smile before she falls asleep. Real quick here, I just want to take a step back and say how much I love this sub-story. I think it perfectly captures the essence of Yakuza, having all these goofy elements coming together to form something truly beautiful. Man, even just rewatching this to write the script, it got me tearing up. Over in the Anaconda Shopping Center, we saw a guy performing with his ukulele for a relatively big crowd. And it didn't seem like he was just some small-time street performer. I mean, he had his own stage as well. This was enough to pique my interest, so I joined the crowd to watch him perform. And it was actually pretty good. Once the show's over, we overhear some pleased spectators saying how lucky they are to catch Matt Tropico at a place like this. Apparently he's going on tour soon, and this was his release party. We leave, but later on we see Matt Tropico himself struggling carrying a box, about to fall over, so we give him a hand. We ask him why he doesn't just have his crew do all this stuff. I mean, after all, if he gets hurt, then he can't play his ukulele. He says this event was kind of a rush job and there's not much staff working it, so he didn't want to make any more trouble for them. He seems like a pretty respectable guy, showing consideration for the staff even though he's a famous musician. Even one of the concert staff came up to us and thanked him, but said to leave it to them. Matt thanks us and tells us he hopes to see us at another one of his shows, and we part ways. Later on, we saw Matt Tropico out on the street with some fans asking for autographs. Even through all the fame, he still stays humble. I guess that's why everyone likes him so much. But then some kids notice him, calling him some potato dude, and throwing out various potato-related insults at him. We don't think much of it, and go on our way. Next time we're at the mall, we see Matt surrounded by some guys in leather jackets. One of them started talking about how they're just some punks working their asses off trying to get their band's name out there, unlike him. He says it wouldn't hurt to give them some spending money. Another guy pitches in, saying that Matt sold off his pride and soul, all to become popular, and that he's probably making the big bucks by now. He also calls him Gollum Gunwolf for some reason. That struck a nerve, and he told them to never call him that again. They go on to say that Matt used to be a fun guy, letting loose, going wild, and playing some real music. He makes an offer that if he becomes Gollum Gunwolf again, they'll drop this whole money thing, which Matt passes on. The guy's about to punch him, so we step in, telling them to knock it off. They double down, saying that he's making bank off of trash music, and that he should spare his old pals a dime or two. But they weren't too happy with my interference, so we got into a fight where I wiped the floor with them. Matt thanks me and properly introduces himself as Matthew, and tells us he went through a lot to get to where he is now. We decided to go to a bar to chat about it, since it's hard to talk about it in a place like this. When we get there, I ask him if he always plays at shopping centers and out on the street, and he says he used to do it more often, but hasn't had the chance for it too much since he signed with a music label. He only got to do it for his album drop, so we were pretty lucky to see it. He thanks us for our support and says, if only I'd gone with ukulele from the start. We ask him what he means by this, and he tells us that he's always been a musician, but he changed genres. He tells us that in the past, he was a pioneer of wild rock, a music genre of his own invention, where you become one with nature and channel the raging storm you feel inside however you feel best. Which kinda sounds like the exact opposite of what he's doing right now. Up until a few years back, he was decked out in punk gear and played guitar under the name of Gollum Gunwolf. He never really got popular though, but he was very passionate. Wild rock was his whole world, and when things weren't working out, he just kept screaming his lungs out, showing his rotten and ugly emotions. To really sell his connection to the earth, he would do things like hanging potatoes around his neck and that sort of stuff, which explains what those kids were talking about. He doesn't look back on these days too fondly, and would erase it from history if he could. He's always wanted to make music that moves people's hearts, to inspire people. But if nobody's listening, is it really music or just white noise? He thinks that if the songs don't actually reach people, they're all meaningless. Then he noticed that soft pop with the ukulele got popular, so he figured that if he could make a living off of music everyone listens to, this was it. He ended up pawning his beloved guitar and learning the ukulele. That leads to where he is now, but now people are trying to expose his dark past. But he thinks that he's on the right path now, and his music is reaching other people. He thanks us for listening to him and hanging out, and we say goodbye for now. Later on, while we're walking down the street, Matt stops us and tells us that he's doing a concert at the beach and that we should stop by. Before we answer, a kid comes up to him and asks if he's Gollum Gunwolf, which caught him off guard. He tells him how big of a fan he is of Gollum Gunwolf, and he used to listen to him at an empty parking lot. He'd love to hear him play again, but Matt shuts him down, saying Gollum Gunwolf no longer exists, disappointing the kid. Later, I found the same kid with his mom, telling her that he doesn't want to leave the city and get surgery. He's super scared of getting surgery, but his mom says it's the only way to stop his illness. The mother leaves to go get his medicine, so we go up to him. Not creepy at all. We ask about his health, and he tells us he's been going to the hospital ever since he was born. He's reached his limit though, and they're sending him to a hospital in Texas for a major surgery that he's too scared to go to. Kasuko wonders what he can do to help when he's startled by Pete, that's his name by the way, his alarm to take his medicine. The alarm was actually a Gollum Gunwolf song, and it was pretty intense. He always played the song in the parking lot near his house, which his mom thought was obnoxious, but he loved it. It gave him the courage to keep going, and he always listened to it before going to the hospital. He just has one wish before leaving for surgery, and that's to hear Mr. Gollum play live one more time. P has to go, so we go looking for Matt. Eventually, we do find him in a pawn shop, looking at his old guitar. We tell him the kid's story, and how his music actually did reach someone. He has some business to attend to, but he tells us to come to his next concert with Pete, and promises that he'll sing with all his heart and soul. We invite Pete to the concert, and he comes with us even though he's a little hesitant since it is a Mad Tropical concert, not a Gollum Gunwolf concert. He plays his first song, In Search of Venus, which the crowd loves, and it continues like this all throughout the evening. Pete's enjoying himself, but he does say it's not the same. Matt announces that he'll be doing one more song, and he dedicated it to a person that supported him the whole time. He says that he hopes it gives him the courage that he needs right now. He tears off his Mad Tropical shirt and transforms into Gollum Gunwolf, ready to rock. Unlike the rest of the crowd, Pete's loving every second of it, so we throw his guitar over to Gunwolf, and he shreds his heart out. Gollum Gunwolf comes up to us afterwards and asks if Pete's going to go through with the surgery, which he now feels brave enough to do. He tells us that he's ashamed that even though there were actually people who were moved by his old music, he tried to lock up and hide his past anyway. In the end, it doesn't matter how many people are listening to your music. As long as they can move at least one person and give them the courage they need, then that's enough. He's finally embracing both sides of his music and gives us an autographed t-shirt as thanks, before he plays a little longer just for us two. Right next to where we found Matt Tropico originally performing, there was a Japanese film crew. We asked one of the crew members what was going on, and he told us they were filming an episode of Anaconda Escape, which is actually a huge hit back in Japan. Basically, once a year, they rent out Anaconda Shopping Center and have celebrities participate in what's essentially a huge escape room. Right now, they're filming the challenges round for regular citizens who want a chance to compete after a rigorous screening process. He has high praise for this year's challenger, who's been called Mr. Anaconda. This guy even built a training course in his backyard, all in preparation for today. But seconds before the shoot, the producer got word that Mr. Anaconda actually backed out, and they can't reschedule since the celebrity round is next week. Turns out he got an illness, so he can't compete. Since they're just about to start filming, they need a replacement ASAP. He took one glance at Kasuga and decided it'll do. Screw the screening process, they needed someone immediately, so I decided to help out. They explained the game is a giant game of tag, with riddles scattered around here and there. Will I escape with my head held high, prize in hand, or will the hordes of enemies take me down? Pretty exciting stuff, but what kind of enemies are we talking about here? Turns out they're just college kids helping out, with each of them built for either power or speed. The crew member filled me in on the finer details. I have 6 minutes to complete missions in the form of solving quizzes on the various laptops scattered around and unlocking containers using keys and passwords. And the more missions I complete, the better the prize I get once I escape. The quizzes are all based on this very shopping mall, so he said I could take some time to scope it out a little. But I don't need that. If we encounter an enemy, we get into a non-lethal brawl that they are not contractually liable for. And if we win, there's only a 20-second penalty as opposed to the 40 seconds if we lose. The smaller guys are easier to beat, but faster on their feet, and the bigger guys are slower but stronger. Now that we're caught up to speed, we jump right into it. We immediately found a laptop which asks a true or false question. Treasure Select Pawn is located on the 2nd floor. We answered true, definitely because we knew the answer and didn't just guess, and got it right, giving us 1 point. Immediately after, we encountered one of those runners who we one-shot, but we still had the 20-second penalty. We encountered another, ran through the mall, weaving between these island things, got into a couple more fights, and escaped. Trust me, I was looking for more laptops and containers, but I just couldn't find any. So that's that, I guess. I don't know, there's a lot of build-up for like a 2-minute game. They all congratulated me, gave me a silver plate and smoke bomb as a prize, and already got some ideas for next year's show, Mr. Anaconda versus Kasuga, the indomitable rookie, which I immediately shut down. The producer then gets another call saying their contestant for their new biking show backed out. Not happening. Phew. Okay, halfway done. Everyone still with me? There were a lot of relatively long sub-stories in a row there, but most of the longer ones are behind us now. Across the street, we saw some men in suits in the middle of an argument with a timid man telling them that the director wants to retake a scene. The men in suits didn't take too kindly to this, saying that they risked their lives for that shot and didn't want to do it again. The director comes in, saying that it's a money shot and he needs the dodge to come at the last second possible. But the suit guys seem to have had enough, and they're about to beat his ass, so I, still not really knowing what's going on at all, dodge and weave through the busy street to try to stop them. We tell them to stop, but that just directed their anger at me, so I had to take care of them real quick. But then, the director has a revelation. We're the one his movie needs. He tells us that he's Boni Kashiwa, an acclaimed Japanese film director, now gone global, and his assistant's name is Furukawa. We ask what the argument was all about, and sure enough, those guys were stuntmen. The director had some choice words for them, saying that they have no right to call themselves true stunt performers. Furukawa whispers to me that Boni Kashiwa has a somewhat demanding style, and the hospitalization rate among his stunt workers is notorious. So this happens quite often with the stuntmen. Some people in the industry even call him Stunt Killer Kashiwa. This particular production hasn't been going great, as they don't even have a single action scene shot yet. Kashiwa expresses his disappointment in those stuntmen, but says that we're different. The way I wove through traffic to reach him, the fearlessness in my eyes when I confronted those thugs. He absolutely needs us for this movie. It's called Sway the Car 3, Burning Brake. The scene they're trying to film right now is one where a tough guy avoids a litany of explosions while dodging oncoming cars. Pretty intense stuff. Sure, it's dangerous, but we're making art here. And if we pull this off, our names will be etched into the great pantheon of cinema forever. It's clear he's very against the use of CGI. Furukawa suggests using just a little bit of digital effects to save some money and make it safer, but Kashiwa is adamant that it's all practical. He then drops this insane line: "If I wanted to direct cartoons, I wouldn't have gotten kicked out of art class over my series of provocative self-portraits." He says movies need realism, which I personally think is a pretty respectable pursuit. He says he doesn't enjoy seeing people get hurt, but he refuses to compromise his vision. He seems really passionate about this, so I decide, what's the worst that could happen? All I have to do is suit up, dodge the cars and explosions, and reach the finish line in 40 seconds. On my first attempt, I got brutally ran over, and same with the second. On the third, I realized, why am I trying to fully dodge the cars when I can just stay in between two lanes and just slightly move out of the way so that I don't have to move so far for each car? And that worked. I made it to the end with 12 seconds to spare. It was perfect, just how Kashiwa envisioned it. Even the stuntmen from earlier were impressed. Kashiwa tells us how good it was, and tells us a little about why he doesn't use CGI. He still believes there's a beauty in filming exactly what you place in front of the camera. He mourns the loss of the real, in a world whose soul is slowly vanishing in the name of convenience. This movie he's making was supposed to be a love letter to the old ways, but he does realize that he might have gotten a little carried away, recognizing that the stuntmen from before were actually being pretty reasonable. He was actually planning to retire after this movie, but seeing me perform made him want to keep going. But then, the stuntmen came up to us, moved by Boni Kashiwa's passion in my performance, apologizing for all that they said. They're back in on the project, so I don't have to do all the rest of the scenes. Furukawa gives me a small reward as I leave, while Kashiwa shows the stuntmen the next scene they're shooting. 3 cornered heisters jumping for freedom from the massive skyscraper, skipping the safety harness. They try to get me in this shot, but I skedaddle before I get roped into any more brushes with death. Hey, you all remember James, right? That rival director from the Nathan substory? Well, he's back. We find him on a bench thinking over his new movie. After his encounter with Nathan, he decided to give those old samurai movies a try, and he was moved. He thought it was powerful how they were making cinema with barely any budget or effects. Now that he's given them a chance, he finally understands where Nathan was coming from. But what matters right now is his movie. He's making this big summer blockbuster with cutting-edge CGI. But despite everything going well, it feels like it's missing something. There's no tension, and the script is a little lackluster. This is really eating away at him. And if he keeps going like this, he's stuck with a cast and crew that specializes in CGI, with no knowledge about practical effects or traditional stunt work. He says he's dying for real cinema. This shows some real passion for cinema that I didn't really think he was capable of. On another note, we ask him if he really still thinks Nathan's a coward, and he says he does feel bad for how he treated him. He had his own view of what movies should be like that differed from Nathan's, and he wrongfully harassed him for that. So, we advise him to apologize to Nathan, which he says he'll do. Now that we know James isn't a total piece of garbage, we decide to help him out. And if you remember, we happen to know someone who knows a thing or two about practical effects. Boni Kashiwa himself. And it turns out that they know each other. Well, they've never met, but they do know each other's names and have a mutual respect. But Kashiwa's a bit confused on what James needs him for, since James is all about fancy CGI, which just isn't his style. We fill him in on James's current predicament, and he's happy to help, so he asks what the scene is all about. James describes it as hundreds of fucking semi-trucks combined to form a giant no-shit robot to protect the city, and the key shot is the hero running through all these colliding semis to make it to the command room. Normally he just filmed the actor running and do the rest digitally, but now he sees the value of realism, which is where Boni Kashiwa comes into play. Kashiwa tells him that not only does he have the right advisor, him, but also the best possible stuntman. me. Since this is so important to James, I give in and play my part. Furukawa and I have a little chat before we begin the shoot, and it's crazy to think about these two brilliant creators from opposite ends of the creative spectrum collaborating to make something incredible. Anyways, our job is pretty much the same, but this time we're dodging semi-trucks instead of normal cars. Unlike last time, I managed to do this all in one take, and it turns out perfect as always. But wait a second, where's James? Turns out he insisted on running behind me the whole time, and after reviewing the footage, he's humbled to have shot it. At this point, he's hardly recognizable from the bully we met earlier with Nathan. Without Nathan, he would still be the same closed-minded, egotistical flash in the pan. He says he'll still use CGI, but only to alter the background a little bit and augment the real footage. A reasonable compromise. And while Kashiwa doesn't support its use, he's wise enough to know that realism alone doesn't entertain an audience. The two directors get back to discussing the scene, and I start to take my leave. But as I'm leaving, they want one more shot of me in the driver's seat of a truck that crashes, sending me flying. I think it's time I retire. This sub-story starts with us seeing a couple on a date, and the guy ends up throwing a can on the ground. In Hawaii, littering's illegal, so we go tell them to clean up after themselves, but they weren't having any of it. But then, out of nowhere, comes along Sojimaru, the giant vacuum cleaner, and its creator, Professor Okita. These guys are from a sub-story in the last game where we gave him funds to create Sojimaru. After some issues here and there, he made a version to clean up the streets of Yokohama, but what are they doing in Hawaii? Turns out an American company took interest and offered him a position, and he's been working harder than ever. He tells us he's on the cusp of a major breakthrough, one that will revolutionize vacuum AI. He's trying to make Sojimaru able to think for itself, just like human beings. He calls it the Sojimaru Intelligence Model, and its final touch will be the built-in incinerator. Plus, she can also make pancakes with the incinerator. The version we have with us right now is still the same one we saw back in Yokohama. Essentially, one of the materials he needed to make the upgrade saw a massive boost in price, and just like last time, he wants our help funding it. He asked for $3,000 and says he'll give us compensation when it's finished. So we agree to pitch in once we've obtained the money. So later on, with plenty of money to spare, we contributed our $3,000. He ran off to go work on Sojimaru, and next time we saw them, the exterior wasn't all too different, but he says some major upgrades have been made. To demonstrate its new thinking capabilities, he placed 2 servings of shave ice in front of it. It did nothing, because they're still considered food. But once he ate it and it was just an empty cup, Sojimaru detected it and cleaned it up. It's still in its early stages, but over time, it will get better at recognizing trash naturally. He asked if we'd be willing to help teach Sojimaru to intelligently classify trash. Basically, he'll show me items, I say whether they're trash or not, and Sojimaru listens. I only had 3 seconds for each item, so I had to think fast. It'll take some time to process all that, so we leave and come back later. When we come back and Sojimaru is more intelligent, he shows us another demonstration where it will clean up all the trash in this pile, leaving all the non-trash, while burning all the trash as it goes. And to my surprise, it did it perfectly. He tells us that once it no longer detects trash in the vicinity, it'll come back. So any time now, it's not coming back. It said it still detected trash in the area, and went up to a group of thugs harassing some guy. Oh shit! Even that guy who littered at the start came walking by and got sucked up. But for some reason, it was completely friendly to a random woman. It turns out the AI has evolved so much, it's now capable of determining whether a human is societal trash or not. We had to put a stop to it, but as Okita started kicking it, it detected him as trash and just shot fire at him, then sucked him up too. So we entered a battle that we were pretty underleveled for. There were 3 different points that we needed to hit. It took a while, but we finished off the right module, then the left, and then the main one, successfully putting it back into safety mode. It suddenly started vibrating like crazy though, so maybe there's some sort of self-destruct function? Nope, just pancakes. Well, it's clear that AI can be pretty dangerous if you're not careful, and this incident was a valuable learning experience. He says he's gonna make Sojimaru safer than ever moving forward. And even though those people got slightly injured, it was certainly a good learning experience for them too. On another note, the pancakes were also pretty good. In the northern part of town, we saw a woman talking to a police officer about a UFO sighting. She's saying the UFO came by and beamed up her chicken, but nobody believes her. I mean, I don't think I would either. But we saw her later on and decided to talk to her about it, and she swears that it's true. She then reveals that she has a picture of it, which why would she not show it to the other people? Oh, that's why. She said she was so shaken up, she reflexively took a selfie. Kasuga told her this is such a blown opportunity, it makes him mad to look at. She tells us her plan is to go back to where she saw it and stake the place out all night long until it returns, so that she can get her chicken back. She's definitely committed and she's willing to put herself in danger in order to get to the bottom of this. So I decide that I'm going to join her on her stakeout. I mean, I'm pretty curious myself. She tells us her name's Karen, go figure, and we agree to meet up here later tonight. So we meet up, head over, and start waiting. And wait, and wait, and we fell asleep. But suddenly we heard a cow mooing, which woke us up. When we opened our eyes, sure enough, she wasn't lying. Karen rushes over and we follow behind. She said she was going to bring some weapons earlier, so she showed us the ones that she did bring. Let's see here, we got a bunch of rocks, a baseball and bat, and a whole ass rocket launcher. I know what I'm using. We took aim and fired. But hey, that UFO looks a little familiar. An absolutely freaky figure emerged from the supposed UFO. Professor Okita and Sojimaru? Okita is quick to correct us. This thing isn't just Sojimaru, but Sojimaru Flying Beta Max, its final evolution, no longer shackled to the Earth. Well, we've determined it's no UFO, but there's still the matter of Karen's chicken. Okita says this shouldn't have happened. I mean, if you can't distinguish what's trash and what isn't, it's basically just a flying weapon. He decided to give us a demonstration of its trash detection, so he went up and pressed a button on it. It flew up, said it detected trash, and started beaming him up. Turns out Sojimaru was listening to him when he drank himself depressed last night and started crying that the whole world is garbage. So now Sojimaru is going around sucking everything up. And just to add on, he decided to give it an upgrade to its chassis, so now it's more durable than ever. Perfect. So we went into battle, and since I did the sub-story like 50 hours after I did the previous one in my playthrough, I was way over leveled for this fight. We won, saving the professor and Karen's chicken, as well as a whole bunch of just normal citizens. Kasuga gives Okita some advice, that in these kinds of tech fields, he really needs some precautions. He says it's like a really hyped up video game that is super disappointing if it comes out buggy and unpolished. A little bit more meta commentary from the devs. It's things like these that I know the series is in good hands. They both give me some accessories as thanks, and we talk about how UFOs aren't real after all. Hey, wait. Yo, yo, yo! In this sub-story, we're introduced to Aloe Happy Tours after bumping into their freaky-ass mascot. They're a travel agency run by Japanese people designed specifically for Japanese tourists. The manager says her nickname is Elizabeth, but her real name's Eri Yamada. We ask about Aloe Happy Tours, which are activities steeped in Hawaiian culture that give us access to new in-game jobs, which are basically just classes that give party members different stats and abilities. Since our first experience was free, we went on a diving tour. We surfed, went swimming with dolphins, and chilled in the ocean. And from this experience, we learned the aquanaut job. We get back and Elizabeth shows us the Aloe Happy Room, a private space where we can change our looks and jobs on the fly, free of cost, which I was constantly using throughout my playthrough. And that's about it for this sub-story. I don't really know why they made this sub-story number 31, seeing as it's introducing a pretty vital mechanic to the game. That's whatever. But as we left, Aloe Happy, the mascot, stopped us to show us the Tropical Photo Rally. He says it's an event they're hosting where I'm given hints to help me take great pictures. But what's more interesting to me is that this guy can actually talk. He told us the whole subservient, family-friendly character thing is Looney Liz's idea. She's nuts if you haven't noticed. He then asks if we have a lighter so he can go for a smoke. Anyways, back on track. He says we'll get rewards for participating. It also seems like this guy's livelihood is kind of depending on getting participants, so we agreed to try it out. How it works is, we're given an image of a zoomed in place in the city, and we have to find where it is and snap the same picture. Like this cutout of Aloe Happy right here. For each major area in Honolulu, there's a different set of pictures we need to take, and if we fully complete an area, we need to report back to Aloe Happy to get our prize. Alright, now we can leave. On the beach, we saw a turtle being surrounded by a bunch of potential crooks getting ready to take it for themselves. We told them to stop, obviously, and they decided to try to fight me. But they were no match for me, even when I didn't have the rest of my party with me. They scramble out of there and the turtle says thanks to us. Hey, no problem, man. Wait a minute. What? The voice then clarifies it wasn't the turtle, it was just this thing. Kasuga got scared of the turtle demon thing, reasonably so, and bumped his head when he fell over. When we woke up, oh look, a different text box. We found ourselves on a whole new island with these creatures. They introduced themselves, the green one being Gachapin and the orange one being Muku, who, fun fact, are two iconic characters from an old Japanese children's show. I don't really know what they're doing in this game, but they're welcome, I suppose. They tell me this place is Dondoko Island, the ultimate vacation from my worries and cares, a true resort paradise, and these two are its very own mascots. Now, I don't know about you, but this place doesn't really look like a resort. No one else is here and there's trash all over the place. Then, another man comes up and says the trash is all from illegal dumping. He says his name is Matayoshi, and he's the owner of Dondoko Island. Turns out this island used to be a bustling resort, but at some point, a no-good waste disposal group called the Washbucklers showed up and started illegally dumping on the island. Not only are they polluting the place, but also destroying structures and harassing guests. All of this led to where they are today, rock bottom. But these guys still haven't given up on the island, and they're dedicated to getting it going again. Since it's getting dark, they offer me a place to stay for the night, and I accept because it's not like I have anywhere else to really go. When we wake up, Kasuga wants to repay them for letting him stay the night, so he decides to do something about the trash. So we pull out our bat and get to work destroying it. We finish clearing out the area, and the other guys were very appreciative. But then, a group of evil pirate-looking guys show up. The Washbucklers, and their boss Fukuyama, also known as Dread Pirate Hook. I quickly gave them the same treatment as the trash earlier, and the rest of them left. Matayoshi says that he wishes he had our strength to be able to protect the island, but it's too bad we're leaving soon. But I decide no, I'm gonna stay here and help this place get back off the ground. After all, there's no way to go but up. And that's the end of the sub-story, but trust me, there's so much more to Dondoko Island. I mean, on my playthrough, I spent upwards of 10 to 15 hours on this side game alone. Think a slightly more simplified version of Animal Crossing New Horizons. You can build structures, catch bugs and fish, and invite various different residents to stay at the island. You can even make and give residents souvenirs, run TV ads, host campfires, all in an effort to turn this dump into a 5-star resort. At the end, you also gain access to an incredibly overpowered attack for battle. So if you're thinking of playing this game, take a break from the main story for a bit to do all of Dondoko Island. You will not regret it. It is kind of unbelievable just how fleshed out this piece of side content is. So yeah, big fan of Dondoko Island. In the main story, we were told to check out this place called the Labyrinth, so we do just that. Some guy just outside of it saw us considering going in and told us the building stretches deep into the bowels of Earth, and that anyone who reaches the bottom will find treasure beyond description, but most people who've entered here have never been seen again. This explains why we heard that people go missing here earlier in the main story. For some reason, this guy is talking in some fancy classical English, but the gist of what he's saying is that the layout of the place changes every time we enter. But then we heard a scream coming from the place, and we can't ignore something like that. Before we head in, the guy asked us to spare him $1 for his spiel. He says he's not some video game character and it takes time and effort to hang around here warning people. Fair enough, he did a good job, so we gave him $1. We head in and realize this is just a randomly generating dungeon, like in a video game, whoa! Going through all these floors of the dungeon, I was getting heavy Persona 3 Tartarus flashbacks. Just think of that, but nothing really interesting going on visually. We went through a whole bunch of unique enemies on 2 different floors, rescuing missing people along the way. And on the 3rd floor, there was a little mini-boss that wasn't too difficult. There's a lot more to the labyrinth as you go deeper and deeper, but we decided to stop here and head back up. While I'm not the biggest fan of this type of gameplay, you do get some really good rewards from the labyrinth, so it is absolutely worth doing in a playthrough. But that's about it for the sub-story. It mainly just serves to introduce a good area to get stronger. In this sub-story, we found a woman crying in an alley, so we asked her what's wrong. She responded, saying some drunk guy started getting aggressive with her in the club, and she had to get away from him. We said we should get her out of here, and asked if she was hurt. She's not, but she does say that she's so panicked she doesn't know if she can even move. Suddenly, she embraces Kasuga and asks him to stay with her for the night. Kasuga, being the good guy he is fine with it. So we go to a nice bar where she introduces herself as Emi, and very clearly starts flirting with Kasuga. So, when she asks what he thinks of her, he said, "You're a cute little kitty." Totally not because I chose that option. No, I would never do something like that. Surprisingly though, she went along with it. But the horniness doesn't stop there. These drinks are pretty heavy and Kasuga got a little dizzy. Yo, Kasuga, you gotta chill, bro. This alcohol is really getting to his head, but Emi said let's make the next one our last before we find somewhere more private. But he gave me the option to refuse it, so I did. I've embarrassed Kasuga too much already this sub-story. He deserves a break. I tried to let her down easy. After all, stuff has happened to her tonight that she might need more time to process. She then suggests some juice to sober up, but before she gives it to us, unbeknownst to Kasuga, she puts something in the drink. Well, here goes nothing. I woke up on the street and noticed some of my cash missing. To be honest, it barely made a dent in my wallet, but still. Some guys came up to me, so I asked if they saw anyone who looked like Emmy, but they explained to me that I've been played. Then another, more innocent looking guy came up and said he might know something. He tells me her name is actually Marianne, and she's pretty notorious around these parts for luring in tourists, getting them drunk as hell, then taking their cash. We ask if he can get in touch with her, but he says he and her have drifted apart. They used to be super close when they were children, practically like family, but over time, she turned into someone completely different. She started scamming people and even selling herself. But this guy hasn't given up on her and still wants to help her. He tells us his name's Zach and that he teaches at an elementary school, and we offer to help look for her. I mean, I still have to get my money back. He gives us his only lead that on some nights she turns up in the back alley of Pearl Avenue. So we head off to go check if she's there. When we got there, sure enough, we saw Marion going into the alley. We follow her, but as we're talking to her, some guy comes up and gets real mad at us for harassing Sophia. We have no clue what he's talking about, but he accuses us of playing dumb, so we get into a quick fight. Before we can start asking Marianne some questions though, someone else comes up. A child? He's worried about her, so she kneels down saying it's alright, and tells him that I'm one of her friends. It turns out that that's her kid, Kyle. She tells him to leave for a bit so we can talk, and I fill her in on Zach wanting to help. She got super defensive though, saying Zach doesn't know shit. She says Zach grew up super rich and privileged, a very different experience from her. The only reason they became friends is because his family moved onto the block next to hers, probably to redevelop it. She knew they were from two different worlds, but that's that he realized that. She needed to make money any way she could. Her parents ended up in prison when she already had her kid, not knowing who the father is. So she's been doing all this in order to take care of her kid, which is messed up that it's even come to this point, but I guess it's reasonable. She tells us we're not getting our money back since she already spent it, but it's hard to be mad about it now. She says she resents the world she was born into, but she's not sorry for what she's had to do to survive in it. And she doesn't need any do-gooders telling her she needs to have a fresh start or anything like that. This brings her to tears. We tell her it's a hard situation to be in. After all, Casca was homeless for a good while, and he knows this road never ends well. She can justify anything by saying it's for her child, but just because it's defensible doesn't mean it's right. I mean, her son is eventually going to grow up and blame himself for what she's going through too. And she agrees she can't continue like this, but she doesn't know what to do. This was when Zach came over, so we told him about our kid. This changes everything for Zach, and he profusely apologizes for how he's been pushing for her to change. He thought she was just some teenage delinquent, but it's been much deeper than that. We can't change our past, but with help, we can change our future. Zach tells her that it's not gonna be easy, but if she turns herself in, she can still have a life. He even offers to look after Kyle for her until she's back. She tells us she's never really had this kind of compassion before, and tells us to give her some time to sort everything out before she does it. The next day, we saw Zach and Kyle in the park together. He says Marion asked him to look after Kyle while she took care of some things, but we're a little curious about what she's doing, so we go looking for her. When we left, Kyle said that his mom has so many friends, Zach has to try extra hard to be her best one. Just some cute little dialogue. We found her in another alley talking to a cop, but there's something shady about him. She hands him some cash, but he doesn't seem too impressed by the amount. She tells him she's turning herself in, and that she won't be giving him money again. This guy's pissed though, and tells her things will be even harder as an ex-con. He says he's the one putting food on the table for her and Kyle, but it's not like he's running a charity, she's been paying him. He then threatens her that he'll take her in himself, not letting her see Kyle ever again. Marion stays strong and starts walking away, but then he points a gun at her and leverages his power as a cop, saying no one would believe a word from her. Then, like the cool guy we are, we step in and say, I would. Oh. He then points the gun at me, but when we get into a battle, I absolutely beat the brakes off of him. Casca says that whenever someone's taken a wrong path, if they're serious about making things right, they'll always have his support. Some non-corrupt cops come up to us, about to arrest me, but Marion steps in and tells them that I actually saved her. She tells them everything, including all that she had done, and before she's arrested, they give her some time to talk to Kyle and Zach. As thanks to us, she gave us a platinum plate and a bunch of magazines, some pretty valuable items for someone who's pretty much at rock bottom. She tells Zach she's counting on him, and Zach promises to do this for her. Her and Kyle have a heart-to-heart where Kyle told her how much he appreciates her hard work, and they say goodbye for now. Back on the beach, there's two giant excavators just hanging out for some reason. There were some other guys looking at it, saying that their boss is gonna be so pleased. We asked them if they're doing construction or anything, and they say no, they're just for a display. They say they're rarities, old models used during the settlement. Because they're in such good condition, their boss made it his mission to show them off to the public. I guess they are pretty important to the beach, but they're taking up a lot of space. Anywho, they don't run anymore since the batteries have been removed. They showed us the old sockets where the batteries went, and it looks like they just lost their covers. So theoretically, they could run again, and it would just need some electricity in it, though there would be no way to control it since the levers are rusted. It would be pretty bad if their engines did happen to turn on. On another note, we saw another old friend from the last game, Ringmaster Yasuda. Back in Yokohama, he would bring various animals and it would usually go wrong, but the crowd loves it. After the multiple fiascos that happened back in Japan, Yasuda realized something. Let others do the work and simply reap the dividends. So now his staff handles the circus, and now he's here running a traveling aquarium. Sounds like he invested literally all of his money into it, so it better go well. Well, he has to go get some things ready, but he tells us to come to the show sometime. Next time we're at the beach, we ran into Yasuda again. This time, he was carrying 2 electric catfish. I mean, no one wants to see regular, old, boring fish at a show like his. They want something fresh, something with flair. In fact, this particular species discharges the largest electric shocks of any animal on Earth. Can't imagine what it was like getting the permits for these guys. He says he needed to get special tanks for them, since their discharge gets to charging in dark, cramped places. He seems to be in a hurry, so we tell him to be careful not to run too fast. This is when Kasuga has a realization. If those fish were to somehow fly into the crane sockets where the batteries go, they could start up again. I mean, it's a 1 in a million chance, but we should warn him. But as he got close to the cranes, he tripped over a sea cucumber. Those fish flew into the crane socket where the batteries go and started up the cranes. Well, we got a new problem on our hands. It's okay though, the fight wasn't anything too notable since we were like 10 levels above them. Yasuda managed to get the fish back safely, and it seemed a crowd formed around us, thinking that this was the show he was putting on. Yasuda takes full advantage of this, saying it was the free exhibition ceremony. He's a businessman, I have to respect it. But then the men from the start come back to show their boss the cranes. It's safe to say he was not happy. Yasuda sure was though, and he gave me a small reward as thanks for helping him again. I tell him to be a little more careful in the future, and he agrees, but he explains that he usually skimps on safety regulations to cut down on costs, so that the cost to see the show can also be lower, and people from less affluent families can see it. He wants even the poorest child to be able to see something spectacular. It's clear he has a true passion for entertaining people and has a pure heart. He just has to be more careful moving forward. He then asked me to become a part of the show, beating up every fish in the ocean like I did with those excavators, so I got out of there as quickly as possible. Hey, do you remember the second sub-story at all? Where we met the Sujimon sensei and learned about Sujimon, and I said that his chance to settle the score is a story for another day? Well, we just received a text from him, so I guess it's time. He told us to meet him by the PC shop in Anaconda's shopping center, so we head over there, and sure enough, he's just here. We asked him why, and he reminded us about the Sujimon tournament that's run in Hawaii. He calls this trip a professional obligation, but it's clear from the outfit and the shave ice that he's making the absolute most of it. So he takes us into the shop and says to the worker, "Who's that Sujimon?" which opens up a secret passage. I guess they're really trying to keep all this Sujimon business under wraps. We take an elevator down and arrive at an underground coliseum, the Sujimon Stadium, the home of the Suji League, where Sujimon trainers compete against one another. Alright, this is getting out of hand. Honestly though, the fact that they haven't caught a Nintendo lawsuit yet is crazy to me, especially considering the earlier Sicko Snap minigame. Guests are even able to place bets on who's gonna win, and since that's illegal in Hawaii, that's why we needed the whole password thing. The matches are also broadcast live on the dark web, so that wealthy can take part in the gambling. We came in the middle of a match between a trainer named Jack and a trainer named Masato. Jack was absolutely wiping the floor with him though. The sensei explains that battles are fought with teams of 3 Sujimon, led by the trainer, and victory goes to the trainer whose Sujimon defeat their opponents. Trainers are people who catch Sujimon, develop their skills, and create a cohesive team. The trainer we just saw, Jack, happens to be one of the highest ranking trainers in the league and a member of the Discreet Four. At the top of this hedonistic foursome is King, the ultimate Sujimon master. While we're looking at King, the sensei tells us the match is starting and good luck. Wait, what? The announcer first announced the opponent as Koichi Hideno, a man so saddled with debt he's resorted to Sujimon battles to stay afloat, and then announced me as the former yakuza cum tourist who never stays down. Now, I don't know if that's supposed to say that. I feel like you could add an S at the start of that word and it would make sense. Whatever. Alright, I guess we're doing this. The sensei tells us he'll explain why later, but we just need to win this battle. But there's one issue before we begin. I don't have any Sujimon. He tells us not to worry since he called in some old friends. A very energetic man comes in and introduces himself as Yasuo Sodachi. This put a massive smile on my face since longtime fans of the series will recognize this guy as a recurring character dating all the way back to Yakuza 4. He came with 2 of his students from his old dojo. Sodachi comes up to us and says, "So you're Ichibal's Kasuga?" And when we corrected him, that "oh shit" just felt really genuine. The sensei tells me that they're capable Sujimon in their own right, so I kinda have no choice but to put my faith in them. We start the battle, and Sodachi starts explaining what we actually have to do. Before a Sujimon can use an attack, they must build up Sujimon power, or SP, and this SP is shared throughout the whole team. Whenever the SP gauge reaches 10, we can give them a command, and the rate at which it fills up depends on the active member's speed stat. More powerful attacks cost more to use, whereas low SP attacks can be used more frequently. So when we reach 10 SP, we told Sodachi to attack. He then tells us that Sujimon have different types that have advantages and disadvantages against others. There's 5 main types: Blaze, Frost, Nature, Light, and Shadow, where Light and Shadow both have an advantage over each other, and the other ones follow rock, paper, scissors rules, where Nature beats Frost, Frost beats Blaze, and Blaze beats Nature. Not only do attacks with a type advantage do more damage, but they also build up more MP, which can be used for special attacks. It's also worth noting that the Sujimon's position relative to others matters, so attacks aimed dead ahead are stronger than the diagonal ones. And if you're too far away, it won't do any damage at all. The red lines mean you have a type advantage, the white lines are normal, and the black ones are at a disadvantage. Once per turn, we can switch any 2 Sujimon's positions to have the best play possible. Most Sujimon have an extra attack that costs a certain amount of MP to use, and it usually does something more special than just damage, like, for example, healing. But before each of these attacks, we spin a wheel, and whatever face it lands on will affect how powerful the attack is and how many enemies it hits, where 3 stars are the best and 1 star is the worst. So Sodachi hit him with an absolutely killer move, and we won. Phew. That was a lot to digest. So if you're a little lost, trust me, I get it. We hit a celebratory pose and collected our cash. But as the sensei congratulated us, he caught Jack's eye. Jack instantly recognized him, and it seemed like everyone else in the crowd also knew him as the former champion Morikasa. They also said they thought the Suji League expelled him. Even the announcer pointed him out, so it's about time we take our leave. Once we're out of there, he admits to us that he's the former Suji League champion, but that it was a different time where gambling wasn't so rampant and the league was a true test of skill. But since the Suji League committee was established, money has devoured the soul of the competition. It's not the same anymore. The Suji League committee includes those guys in the weird pervert masks. They're the ones who run the bets and skim off the top of every battle. They even started fixing matches to accommodate the wealthier clients. It got to the point where the sensei decided to rally against them, which led to his expulsion from the league. He tells me his plan from the very start was to restore the league to its former glory. We ask what the plan is, and they say there's only one option: become the very best and win the championship. If someone wins the favor of the crowd, it's possible to oust the committee itself. But since he can't participate, he needs me to. He says I have the knack for Sujimon and the charisma necessary to win. The sensei is really dedicated to this. He seeks world peace, not just for normal folk, but for his Sujimon brethren too. It's hard to say no to that. Well, now that I'm in the league, I'll need more Sujimon. We can bring 6 Sujimon into battle, having 3 starters and 3 for the bench. And since I already have 3, I need 3 more for a complete team. One of the main ways I can get new ones is just by beating their asses. They classically obey those who assert dominance, so it should work fine. 3 Sujimon showed up in a corner, each as raids, and the sensei told me to choose one of them to recruit, and gave me 10 gifts. Raids are basically just random Sujimon spawning that if you beat them, you'll get a chance to recruit them. There's also a small chance that you'll be able to recruit Sujimon after regular fights, but raids always give you the opportunity. So I beat the shit out of Gamepunk Douglas, and I did a little timing minigame to give him a gift, and he ended up joining me. He's not the best Sujimon out there, but it's a start. The sensei then explains these little Sujimon center things where we can train up our Sujimon by feeding them and that type of stuff. We also have to keep in mind our trainer rank, which can be raised by defeating rival trainers on the street. And we'll be needing certain ranks to challenge members of the Discreet Four and eventually King. He then tells us that we'll need to travel across the land, searching far and wide. Seriously, this lawsuit gotta be coming eventually, right? Anyway, that's the end of the sub-story. There were a lot of long explanations, but the next few sub-stories are also related to the Sujimon League, so I figured it'd be best to explain it all to avoid confusion in the upcoming ones. After reaching rank 10 in the Sujimon League, we made our way over to Jack's home turf, called Regal Jack Resort. Sodachi explained to us that Jack's the newest member of the Discreet Four, and he essentially bought his way up to the top, buying top-notch Sujimon from all over the world. But we do have one advantage over him. He doesn't have the bond with his Sujimon like I do. So we entered his gym, which looks nothing like an actual gym, and met this absolute snob, Jack. He recognized us as the guys with Morikasa earlier, and we told him that we're gonna make our way to the top and defeat King. And to do that, we have to challenge him first. But he says that he doesn't have the time to take on just anyone, and we have to prove ourselves against two of his underlings first. The first one challenges us, and we get into battle. And now, for Ichiban's starting lineup, we have Wipeout Warrior Likeadragon. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Yasuo Sodachi and Squirmworm Harvey. And on the bench, we have Rogue Rishiki Kirkwood, Wheeler Dealer Delgado, and finally, Yokawa. In the first battle, we immediately switched Sodachi out for Yokawa, and he kinda just soloed everyone without any issues. With the same lineup, we challenged the next underling. This time, we switch out Likeadragon with Delgado, but Delgado ended up doing like no damage, even with the advantage. It's okay though, since they didn't do a whole lot either. We put Likeadragon back in there, and he did some really great damage, eliminated one of his Sujimon. Harvey ended up taking a lot of damage and getting knocked out, but Likeadragon got his revenge. I then switched back to Delgado to use his special move, but I actually stopped on the 1-star phase, so I knocked out one of them, but completely missed the other. But Sodachi was able to clean it up despite their attempt to heal. With those guys defeated, I was ready to take on Jack himself. This is barely even about the league anymore. It'll just feel really good to humble a rich asshole. I kept my same lineup and began the fight. He started by hard targeting Harvey, my Squirmworm. When I would have been able to take out one of his guys with Likeadragon, I misclicked on Harvey, which sealed his fate. Sorry, Harvey. Likeadragon took some heavy blows too, getting knocked out. It's not looking good, but at least Sodachi was able to take out two of his in one blow, giving me the lead. I put Delgado in the middle to use his special move. I got 2 stars this time, so I was able to do some decent damage. But that's when one of his Sujimon used Super Muscle Attack, taking out both Sodachi and Delgado, and leaving Kirkwood on a sliver of health. It's all up to Kirkwood and Yokawa now. I attacked with Yokawa, which wasn't able to knock out anyone, but left 2 of them on just a sliver. Lucky for me, he didn't attack on the next turn. Instead, he took the turn to heal. I was able to do a little bit more damage, then he took out Kirkwood. It's all down to Yokawa to finish off these 3 guys. So, I hit him with a Yokawa hook, eliminated 2 of them, and the last guy is in the red. Maybe, just maybe, Yokawa can clutch up if he just survives this next attack. And just like that, Jack has been defeated. Good stuff, Yokawa. Jack couldn't believe it. I mean, he's rich. How could he lose to people significantly less wealthy than him? Sodachi tried making a point about hard work or something. Don't really know what he was getting at, but Jack continued complaining. But then, King himself enters the gym, along with the rest of the Discreet Four, Ace, Queen, and Joker. They said they came to cheer him on against us, but it turns out he was never worthy to be in the 4. So they just kicked him out. Serves him right. They asked for my name, which I tell them, and then leave. Queen stays behind though, telling me that she'll be my next opponent, and I can find her on the beach. Sodachi and his students were in absolute awe, so it's a good thing she left shortly after. We left and Sodachi is still out of it. Well, to challenge Queen, we'll need to reach rank 20, but now we have access to stronger rival trainers to battle in the meantime. Once we reached rank 20, we went over to the beach and we had to swim over to the gym. Before entering, we asked Sodachi if there's anything we should know about Queen, and he tells us that she's seriously hot. Like 100% his type. Not very helpful. But he does also say that she's always ranked at the top of the popularity polls, and all her Sujimon are men who volunteered to fight for her. He says their obsession with her makes them supernaturally strong. Then Sodachi got a little distracted by the scenery. Kuraki told us he was overstimulated since he doesn't really talk to women besides his mom. Yokawa gave him some advice that he got from his mom, since she's the only woman he talks to either, and tells him that all girls appreciate a friendly face. He tries this out, but he just gets told to fuck off, nerd. So he does. Sodachi, on the other hand, tells us that some say he's slept with over 10,000 ladies. But judging by the girls' response, there's simply no way that's true. They all got in their feelings, so luckily Queen came out to greet us. That sure lifted their spirits. Just like with Jack, we had to fight 2 weaker trainers before challenging her, so we got started on the first one. But since our last fight, our team has had some major changes. On the starting lineup, we have Muna Nugget Messiah Horiguchi, the Suji Black Belt, and Sodachi. And over on the bench, we have the return of Wipeout Warrior Likeadragon, High Necromancer Shimoda, and the King of Blaine Wilson. In this first fight, we had Horiguchi slowly chip away at the opponent's frost types, but he was about to get knocked out, so we put Likeike in there to take care of the blaze type in the middle. We took out 2 already, so now we just have 3 left. I managed to get 3 stars on Sodachi's special move, which ended up taking all of them out, only leaving 2 left with the tiniest amount of health. We cleaned them up and won our first match. On to the second, we kept our Tsuji black belt in the middle, and he was able to kind of just sweep her entire team. Sure, his attacks cost 10 SP, but like, it just eliminated 3 at once. Then we just had Likeike take out this last guy. We won without even losing anyone on our side, so this boss should be a breeze, right? We started the fight before Sodachi and the others got too excited, and I was able to do some good damage early on with Tsuji Black Belt. Sodachi unfortunately got knocked out, and then one of her Sujimon used a really strong special move, taking out Likeike and doing lots of damage to the others. Not to worry though, because Horiguchi was able to heal us almost back to full. Tsuji Black Belt was able to take out another opponent, but her last Sujimon took him out, leaving me with 3. I decided to use Wilson's special move to finish him off, but I didn't actually know what it did, so I accidentally healed the party instead. This ended up being a good thing, I think, because he took out 2 Sujimon on his next attack, just leaving it down to him and Horiguchi, who, by the way, isn't able to do a whole lot of damage. Luckily though, 1 punch was all that we needed. She congratulated us and acknowledged the bond we have with our Sujimon. It seems that honest friendship yields more of men than simply preying on their carnal whims. Sodachi seemed to take personal offense to this, saying he would love for her to exploit his carnal whims way more than he wants some lame friendship with dudes. And they all asked to join her team instead. Thankfully she declined, but that got them all depressed. She says that talent might carry one far in the league, but the bonds between trainers and fighters are what truly births champions. She even says that we do have the potential to dethrone Kane. High praise coming from her, but we still have a ways to go. She tells us that the committee even supplies him with Sujimon, revealing that the committee is colluding with him. She explains that the committee would never let a potential renegade in a position that holds as much power and influence as the champion does. A renegade such as Morikasa, for example. Then Ace, another member of the 4, comes out to keep Queen in check, since she is dishing out a lot of information to us. He says he'll be our next opponent, and to give his regards to Morikasa. We'll need to be rank 30 to challenge him, so we better get to work. Once we did eventually reach rank 30, we went over to Ace's gym, but before we entered, we asked Sodachi if there's anything we should know about Ace. He's the oldest of the 4 and has been a member of the league since its founding. He was also very good friends and rivals with Professor Morikasa, which makes us wonder why he's with the committee now. Ace is also known for training up his Sujimon. Apparently, he's able to whip even the weakest guy into top tier shape. We enter, and this time, it really feels like it's an actual gym. Sodachi gets a little nostalgic, considering he used to run a dojo just like this one. He tells us about a tradition where when 2 dojo owners go to war, they wager their signboards. We ask if he even has a sign, and he pulls this thing out, saying of course he does. He calls it a cell sign, like a cell phone. But this is what we're wagering for their frankly tacky and oversized sign. He shows it to a member of the dojo, and he says it's not exactly fair stakes. Ah, so they're scared. But then, the man himself, Ace, accepts the challenge. But just like the other ones, I'll have to go through 2 of his pupils before challenging him. On the starting lineup, we have the Tsuji Black Belt, the evolved Likeike, now in the form of Jaws of Death, and Extermination Kun. And on the bench, we have Muna Nugget Messiah Horiguchi, the High Necromancer Shimoda, and of course, Sodachi. At the start, we just have Extermination Kun mow through most of the enemies, and then have Likeike finish off the rest with his special move. Definitely one of the easiest fights so far, but we'll see if that continues in this next fight. It goes very smoothly for a while, but then I only got 1 star in Shimoda's special move. It didn't turn out to be an issue though, since Likeike and Tsuji Black Belt just cleaned up the rest. We're now able to challenge Ace, and it's clear that he has a lot of respect for the game. He and his pupils win and lose with integrity, the far cry from Jack earlier on. We made a very minor change to the lineup, putting Sodachi on the starting lineup instead of Likeike, just to keep as much health on him as possible, since Ace has a lot of blaze types. So we need to keep him alive for as long as possible. We both exchanged blows for a while until I was able to take out 2 of his fighters, compared to my 1 fighter lost. He healed up and also managed to take out Sodachi, evening the playing field in terms of numbers. We continued trading attacks like this until we were both down to 1 each. Luckily, the one I had left was Likeike, meaning I have the type advantage. I hit him with a Shark Tornado, but somehow he's still hanging on by a thread. He then shoves Likeike again, leaving him hanging on by a thread. But with 1 last Surfer Crash, it was over. Ace says we rallied very well, and that he salutes us. He tells us he sees what Morikasa saw in us, and we ask him about their relationship. He says he was his greatest rival, but also his best friend. They were both there from the very start of the league, and have dedicated themselves to it for all their youth. But things have changed since then, what with the committee and all, and Morikasa was exiled. Now, Ace is the only founding member left in the league. We ask him why he even stays, and he doesn't even know the answer to that. He just feels like he needs to protect his place he used to love, so that it doesn't completely lose what made it special. It's clear he doesn't like what the committee has done to the league, but he's staying, waiting for the day Morikasa is able to resurrect the league of old. He says it's a fool's dream, but then, out of nowhere, Morikasa comes in and tells him it's not sad at all. Morikasa has high praise for both us and Ace, saying that he's the lone beacon of integrity, still keeping the Suji League legitimate. Without Ace, it would just be a den of fixed matches and consumerism. Morikasa apologizes to Ace for leaving, but Ace also apologizes, saying he should have done so much more over the years. But while battling me, he realized that nothing's gonna change if he stays sitting here and complaining. We're doing our part, and now he's going to do his. Ace even offers us some training facilities because even though we're strong, we're still not strong enough to beat Joker, the last of the four, and of course, King. He says he will personally oversee the training of our Sujimon, but for some reason, Sodachi doesn't seem to be on board. He says that he has his own style of training and he doubts that his students would have it any other way. But it turns out they're actually pretty open to a change of pace and would love for some training from Ace. So they fully leave our possession, so we can't use them until their training's finished, which is fine, to be honest. Before we leave, Ace warns us about Joker, saying he's crafty, underhanded, and will win by any means necessary. But before then, we have to reach rank 40. Outside of the dojo, me and Sodachi vow to do our very best. But around the corner, Joker was listening to the whole thing. Once we were ready to head over to challenge Joker, we received a text from him telling us to head over to Ace's gym, where they're holding a party in our honor. I mean, I can't say no to that, but once we got there, everyone was knocked out on the floor. Ace told us that he was attacked by Joker, backed by the committee, probably because he was plotting against them. He tells us that Joker took Karaki and Yokawa, keeping them captive at his hideout. Things are getting way more serious. We need to find them, but nobody knows where Joker's hideout is, so Morikasa offers to help. He says he'll reach out to every Suji contact he has. When we look over at Sodachi, he seems to be deep in thought. Then, out of nowhere, he swallowed his pride and asked Ace for some training. He needs to save his students. They're all he has left of his old dojo. They stuck by him, even when there were better dojos out there. They trusted him, respected him, so he's gonna save them, no matter what. So, while the sensei looks for Joker's hideout, Sodachi leaves to get training from Ace. Later on, I received a text from Morikasa saying he found the hideout, so we rushed back to Ace's dojo. Inside, we see Sodachi in the middle of his training. Ace rushed him, but Sodachi went Super Saiyan and beat his ass. The sensei tells us that, in times of great anguish and catastrophe, Sujimon may awaken to a rare, dark energy known as murderous heat, like Sodachi just did. It's crazy that we even saw it in our lifetime, and from Sodachi of all people. Sodachi rejoins the party, now as Super Sodachi, and he's more ready than ever to save his students. Morikasa tells us that Joker's hiding in a warehouse near Harbor Street, and that he's actually a former Sujimon himself. Back in the days of underground battles, he was considered the strongest man in Hawaii. He's an unpredictable fighter, and all of his Sujimon are hellishly strong. This isn't just some pushover we're up against. This is serious. We entered the warehouse, which was immediately less welcoming than any other gyms prior. Sure enough, Karaki and Yokawa were there, right next to Joker himself. Sodachi says that he's done running from adversity, and that he'll vanquish this fiend and save them. One of Joker's minions tried rushing him, but he was swiftly dealt with. Sodachi is not playing around. Joker's had enough of us already, and gets ready to fight us. This time around's a little different. The fight against Joker's men will be 3 consecutive battles, and our Sujimon will not regain health in between them. Alright, let's do this. On the starting lineup, we have Weeping Archdemon Juan, Super Sodachi, and Sandbagger Wilson. And on the bench, we have the Suji Black Belt, Extermination Kun, and as per usual, Jaws of Death Like Ike. The first battle was super easy since he only had 4 fighters who were half my level, and it was a pretty similar story for the second, just slightly harder. We entered the third battle with all of our Sujimon at relatively high health, so there's not a whole lot to worry about. This fight had 5 opponent fighters, but it didn't make too much of a difference. We did lose Super Sodachi at some point, but Extermination Kun used its special move and nearly finished it off. He attacked again, taking out 2 more of my fighters, but it was already too late for him. We then gathered in the middle for the final fight against Joker, the strongest of the discrete four. A lot of his attacks are relatively weak, but they cost way less SP than mine, so he was able to attack more frequently than me. Despite this, I took out his first 3 fighters with ease, keeping all mine alive. His other 3 consisted of 2 dark types, which, if you remember, are weak to light, so my Sujimon Black Belt was able to do insane damage, one-shotting one of them immediately. But it's a 2-way street, since his remaining dark type took out both the Black Belt and Sodachi. I tried using Extermination Kun's Destructo Beam, but I only got the 1-star attack, so it completely missed one of the guys. It did, however, take out someone. This last guy, though, hits like an absolute truck, taking out Juan and doing tons of damage to Wilson, eventually killing him. Luckily, though, we still had our ace in the hole, Like Ike, who managed to finish the job. I snapped a quick picture with the defeated Joker just to make it really sink in, and we saved Karaki and Yokawa. As they're praising Sodachi, saying stuff like, "I never knew you were so cool," Sodachi reverted back to his old self, immediately needing a nap. The whole Super Sodachi thing wasn't him, and he needs to be himself. But Joker was still pissed about losing, saying, "Fuck the league, I'll kill you." We told Sodachi to step aside for a little while we deal with him. Turns out this guy's level 11. Nice try, little bro, but stick to Sujimon battles. Then, King himself, the Suji champion, came in and congratulated us. He says he never thought we'd be able to defeat the Discrete Four, and that Morikasa chose his man well. He tells us he looks forward to our challenge, and when Joker says that he can't let us do this to him, King says it's his defeat to bear. But then, suddenly, one of the committee agents steps forward and fully shoots Joker. He said that such embarrassments to the Discrete Four must be eliminated, and when King tried to protest, he was threatened with a report to the committee. It's clear King's being controlled by the committee, like a dog on a leash. As they get going, the sensei shows up, asking if this is what King really wants, but King continues walking, saying he's not the same man he used to know. Fair enough, especially when members of the committee are right there, watching his every move. It turns out that King was actually another one of Morikasa's students. He was kind and innocent, and no one loved the league as purely as him. The sensei is still confused why he's fallen in with the committee, and says that there must be a reason for it. The league needs change, and with one more battle left to go, we're more dedicated than ever. Joker tells us he's ashamed for how he acted, but we tell him not to worry about it and focus on healing. Well, that's that. We can now level all the way up to 50, so we get to work before challenging King in our final battle for the championship. But back in the Sujimon Stadium, we see the committee talking about how much money they'll make from this match. I mean, the former champion's prodigy against the reigning champion? What a compelling story. They order King that he's to win, as per usual, but he says he can't promise anything, that we're not someone to count out so easily. He says we're a near perfect trainer, just like Morikasa was. The committee is not happy with this response, telling him how much money they've poured into getting him all the strongest freaks from around the world. They tell him that he can always just press the button, which cuts out all the power and leaves the match declared as a no contest, with the bets voided. They expect him to make use of it if we happen to be winning. They then reveal that they have his mother, and threaten to put her in danger if he ever does lose. This is a lot more sinister than just match fixing. There's lives at stake. No more funny business. We head to the stadium and tell them we're ready for our fight. They do all their introductions, and when we tell King to have some fun, he immediately shuts it down. Well, we'll just have to make him have fun, I suppose. No more dilly-dallying, we get straight into the battle to end it all. You know the drill. Starting us off, we have a mainstay since the very beginning, Jaws of Death Like Ike, Suji Black Belt, and Sodachi, who's just in his normal form for this fight. And on the bench, we have our Weeping Archdemon Juan, Sandbagger Wilson, and of course, Extermination Kun. He starts off with a team of the 3 main types, not letting us make use of type advantages too easily like some of the other fights. This guy's on a whole different level from them. So we just attacked with Suji Black Belt to do some good damage across the board, but he retaliates, taking 2 turns in a row, dealing massive damage to my Suji Black Belt with a Weeping Archdemon of his own. We attacked once more with our Black Belt and managed to get everyone super low, but not taking anyone out. He then had one of his Sujimon use a special attack, eliminating all 3 of my starters. It's frankly not looking too good for me, but my Sandbagger was able to even the playing field. It's now my bench versus his, and we go first. We use one special move, and at this point, I had developed a technique to get 3 stars almost every single time by getting in a rhythm, counting the beats that land on the 3-star face to time it properly. This did so much damage, eliminating 2 of the 3. He was able to move twice in a row, taking out my Sandbagger, but by that point, King's fate was already sealed. Extermination Kun dealt the final blow, but it was truly a team effort. The entire stadium is in absolute shock. King had finally met his match. I'm presented with the champion's trophy, and I'm crowned the champion, a true Sujimon master. King didn't press the button. The committee was furious, but King congratulated us and thanked us for reminding us how fun these battles can truly be. He felt like a kid again, like he did when he was being trained by the sensei. They hug it out and everything's settled, right? Suddenly, the committee members surrounded us. They said that by beating this miserable fraud, we ruined them. They say the sport only exists because of their investors. It's a profit-based enterprise which runs on capital alone, and now will just be remembered as the last champion of the now bankrupt Suji League. The backers always bet on King, and ranked in huge earnings since he couldn't lose. But now that he actually did lose, they're gonna suffer some major losses. King told them he's tired of this charade, of being their pawn, which is why he didn't press the button. He said that we believed there was still something worth saving in him, so he owed us a fair battle. But then, one agent says that his mother's fate is sealed. King tells us that they've had her hostage for years, which is why he didn't really have a choice but to abide by the committee. She got sick one day, and he couldn't pay for her treatment, so the committee offered to help if he agreed to their plans. It all makes sense now. Even though his mother's healthy, he hasn't seen her since. They've been keeping her hostage as collateral, making sure he stays as their pawn. Suddenly, he pulled a gun on King. As we saw with Joker earlier, they don't hesitate to shoot anyone, so we immediately put an end to that. The others got out of there while I battled the agents. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this was a pretty brutal fight. They were all 3 whole levels above Ichiban, and almost killed me immediately. They have moves that can do insane damage to multiple members of my party, which is terrifying to go up against. I wasn't even able to do that much damage to them either, but after a long battle, filled with a lot of reviving of teammates, I managed to just barely pull through. It was over. They try to remind us that King's mother can still be killed, but that's when the members of the Discreet Four showed up, minus Jack, telling King that his mother is safe and sound. He asked why they would help him like that, and they say they were in pretty similar situations. Recently, they've remembered how much fun Sujimon battles can be. They also wish to restore the Sujimon League to its former glory, leaving one message to the committee. All responsibility for this failure falls to the committee. The rest of your meager lives will be spent in a far-off prison cell. Serves them right. It's finally over, and the league can be restored now that the committee is out of the question. Outside of the PC shop, where this whole journey started, they all thanked us for our help. We admit it was a little questionable at first, but it actually ended up being pretty fun. The sensei gave us an absolutely overpowered weapon to use, at least for where I was in the main story at the time. But Sodachi says that he's forgetting something. A trip to Sujiland, the nastiest place on earth. He tells them that once they're back in Japan, he'll treat them to a nice visit to Sujiland. So, we say goodbye for now, and outside the mall, Sodachi's still following us? He told us the bonds between a trainer and Sujimon are eternal, and that he'll always follow us for now. Or at least for as long as he's bored. They remind us how empty their lives really are outside of this. Well, with some new lifelong friends, we move on to even grander heights, and that concludes the entire saga of Sujimon-related sub-stories. Just like Dondoko Island, it blew my mind just how fleshed out this piece of side content was. The battles were somewhat simple, sure, but there's a lot to it outside of just battles as well, like the full storyline we just went through. I gotta say, this was a really fun portion of the game for me, and reminded me of why I love this game series so much. While walking down the streets of Hawaii, we ran into a man named Asakura, someone we met super earlier on in the main story. We had a fight with him on camera back in Yokohama. He streams his fights on his Asakura channel, and he says he's pretty popular too. We ask what he's doing in Hawaii, and he says he's actually here for us. In Yokohama, after our fight, he said that next time would be the real deal, but there was never a next time. So he somehow tracked us down and flew across the ocean for a rematch. He wants us to go all out in a one-on-one with no distractions this time, and his viewers will love it. Well, we might as well give him what he wants. We don't have much to lose. I can't lie though, he didn't put up much of a fight at all. We asked him if he was satisfied, which he scoffed at. We tell him that when we fought him the first time, the punks he was with were nowhere near his level, and that he actually knows how to put up a fight, which doesn't really match up with what we just saw, but just go with it for now. So we asked him why he goes around picking fights for the camera, and tell him that it's what you protect that makes you strong, be that his dream or the people around him. He sure knows how to throw a punch, but with no purpose, he'll just stay right where he is. He admits to us that he's been feeling stuck recently, especially because he never really needed to put in effort for his fights. But after fighting us and getting his ass kicked, he's feeling pretty pumped. He tells us he's gonna train up and get stronger, and eventually challenge us to another rematch. He says the weak Asakura we knew is no more, and the next time we see him, he'll be doing things legit, so he can take pride in what he does. So we agree to fight him again someday, and go off on our way. And that day has come. He texted us to meet him at the dock, so we made our way over for that rematch. He tells us he did a complete 180 since the last time we saw him. In the past, sure he had talent, but he wasn't letting it grow. But now, he should be stronger than ever, so we got straight into it, and he was not lying. He absolutely rocked my world, being 7 whole levels above me. So we can just pretend that didn't happen, and once I was stronger, I came back to challenge him. It was still a pretty close battle though, and I was even about to die at some point, but we managed to scrape out a victory, even with all his dodging. We tell him he's improved plenty, but he says it's still not enough. It's clear that he's been working his ass off to get stronger. Before our first fight, he was only beating down weaklings, but that got old for him quickly. But when we fought, he remembered why he likes fighting in the first place: to feel alive. He asks us if we think his viewers will notice the difference, and it turns out he's still making videos. In fact, our previous fight was his most popular video yet. He did make sure that our face was blurred out, so I guess I appreciate it. He says the viewers prefer the serious competitions better, the ones where he actually has to try. He tells us he'll keep training, and then we can have our grand finale. Once he beats us in front of millions of viewers, it'll be the ultimate comeback and a perfect end to an epic saga. Well, we can't guarantee it'll go exactly like that, but we're looking forward to it. But then, behind a box, there's a suspicious man, mumbling that he finally found Asakura. In the next sub-story, we saw Asakura being surrounded by some guys, including that man at the end of the last one. He clearly wants them to get lost, but they tell him that they also do fight cams. They started pretty recently, but they're already raking in subscribers. It's called the Yoshi channel, named after himself. They were thinking about ways to get more popular, and decided on doing a collaboration with Asakura. They had some fire ideas for videos like, "You won't believe who Asakura fights in Hawaii," or "Asakura sends dude into coma with this simple trick," or even Asakura's homie Yoshi swoops in to save the day. They say that they could pay off some bums for him to beat up and cut it up to make Asakura look invincible out there. But Asakura only cares about real fights, not just putting on a show. Yoshi seems to have a completely different idea about what the people want. He thinks people wants to see people get absolutely pulverized, not just 2 dudes duking it out. Then Asakura just said they're annoying as fuck and they gotta leave. So they did. That's when we went up to him and asked what that was all about, and he said it was nothing, just betas trying to be alphas. But we need to forget about them, cause we have our final fight to worry about. We got straight into it, and this time I was higher level than him. We started off by boosting our attack and defense, and he raised his critical hit rate, an interesting strategy. I used Mask of Punishment, which means he takes a little bit of damage every turn from now on. He tried guarding, but we were able to break it by using Merciless Melee, a move we learned from him earlier. It also ended up doing like most of his health. We then hit him with a soul capture, ending the battle. We were both exhausted, and it's clear that we've both gotten way stronger since our first battle. We thank each other for the opportunity to have some real fights and discuss the battle. We tell him that we even used a few of his own moves. He said that was copyright infringement, but considering how he records people's fights without permission, he can just let it slide. We then got to talking about those guys from earlier, and he says they just wanted to hop on the wave. He's not like them. He wants to show people how exciting a real fight can get, while they just want clicks. But he does acknowledge that he used to be just like them up until recently. He's had some serious growth since we first met him, and we say our goodbyes for now. But those guys from the Yoshi channel are still a little bitter, so they start calling someone, saying that there's someone he needs taken care of. Later on, we got another text from Asakura, saying to meet at the dock as per usual. But when we showed up, he seemed just as confused, saying that I'm the one who texted him. That's when the Yoshi channel guys revealed themselves. They set us up so that they could film themselves kicking our asses. Which, I mean, get real guys, we'd destroy you. But they came prepared, and some guys with weapons came out of the shadows, ready for the fight. Yoshi said that all people want is violence, and he's gonna give it to them. Asakura stepped forward, saying that's enough, but suddenly he got shot in the shoulder. That's a cheap tactic, but we were still ready to annihilate these wannabes. Except, not actually though, since they were all 8 levels above me. I did manage to take out the entire first group by hitting them with an actual death ray from space, but I died shortly after. So, don't worry about that, just pretend we were level 40 from the get-go. Also ignore the fact that it's daytime now instead of evening. We made use of our death beam again, and took out the rest like normal. We even got a badass cinematic of us beating the shit out of them. At the end, Asakura was able to take out the final enemy, and we won. Fast forward a little bit, we called the police and they got arrested. They're still scheming, thinking of making a video about how they got arrested in Hawaii, but they won't get that chance behind bars. We ask how Asakura is doing, since he got shot and all, but it's barely even a scratch to him. He tells us he's going to head back to Japan and train from the ground up, rebuild himself as a fighter and as a content creator. He wants to be someone that people can look up to, and eventually be the one to defeat an undefeated boxing world champ. A good goal to have. He hopes we'll be there watching him, or at least watching a live stream of it. We receive a Brawler God's mouth guard from him as thanks for our help, and we part ways kiss for the last time in Hawaii. But there's one thing he forgot, to tell me to like and subscribe to his channel. And you know, Asakura, that's a fantastic idea that I would recommend to each and every single person watching this video right now. Please. Alright, we're almost done. But fair warning, the final sub-stories in this game are, well, a little weird. You'll see what I mean. Starting with sub-story number 47, after completing almost every exam at the Onobara Vocational School, we had a little chat with Laura, the worker there, and she said that we're the perfect example of why their school exists, among other words of praise. On our way out of the building though, Ikari stopped us, saying that the way we were talking to her was a bit flirtatious. What? He starts getting a little jealous, even though we tell him it was nothing at all. And by jealous, I mean begging on his knees for dating advice. We told him to just be honest with her about his feelings, so he says he'll go do that right now. Realizing what this means, he quickly backpedaled, saying he's not ready. Maybe just a little more time, slowly influencing her thinking. This guy, man. Then we finished the very final exam, and we had the option to give Laura a present. After giving her 3 of these gifts, the next time we saw her, she was talking to Ikari. He says he has something to tell her in private, but he's a little nervous, so he asked us to tag along. We went to the dock, and Ikari finally gathered the courage to confess his love to Laura. Multiple times, but still, good on him. But Laura says that she's sorry. She appreciates the sentiment, but says he deserves the honest truth. She then goes up to Kasuga and says she loves him. She got very close and said she's been telling herself it would be wrong to mix professional and personal feelings. But seeing Ikari open up like that, she realized she can't deny what her heart's saying any longer. We ask why him, and she reveals that she became a receptionist at the school because she loves sweet, sincere, and hard-working men. She also says that she's made mistakes and ended up in relationships with students in the past, which surprised Ikari. She said Kasuga's so effortlessly cool, that he's one of their smartest students, and watching him take exams was breathtaking. Ikari tries stepping in, saying he has way more certifications than Kasuga, but she just tells him he's not her type. I actually feel bad for this guy. She says she adores Kasuga, and trying to figure out the right thing to say in a situation like this, he says she's amazing. Way too good for him. As Laura gets closer and closer to Kasuga, he says he's flattered, but there's someone else for him. She says she's fine with it, and she's even rank 1 in their polyamory certification. She pulls out this bar, which you can read for yourself. There's no way I'm saying that out loud on the internet. Yeah, you can leave what happens next up to your own interpretation. She told him he ranks 3rd in the Laura exam. Not even 1st is crazy. She leaves, saying she looks forward to next time, as Kasuga is a little dumbfounded by how educated she is. We're not in the clear yet though, as Ikari pulls up with an actual machine gun and lets loose. After going on each and every single activity that's offered by Aloha Happy Tours, I'm given the same option to give Elizabeth gifts. So I did, and we thank her for making our trip to Hawaii such a blast. But I think she got the wrong idea, since her next text box had hearts in it. She said that maybe she can return a little of that in the ultimate Aloha Happy activity. She told us there's a secret final activity to do, her personal favorite, that not even the VIPs get to try. We asked how expensive it is, and she said that she wouldn't charge us. She would be in huge trouble if she did, so she got Aloha Happy to lead us to the place where magic happens. She said the activity we'd be doing is called L-I-Z. We didn't get it at first, so she explains that she's the activity. Kasuga would be doing her. Just like Laura, she rushed up to us. She told us that as she watched him boldly conquer each activity, she wanted him to conquer her next. She says she wants to do it non-stop, and Kasuga tries to shut her down by saying he's with someone else, but that does not stop her. He tries sprinting away, but Aloha Happy is right there to block him. Then, against Kasuga's will, they got Aloha Happy. She told us that now we have something truly special to remember Hawaii by. As Kasuga says, that was not only one hell of a tour, but one hell of a guide. They walk away as the camera focuses on Aloha Happy, which gets you thinking, what was his role in this activity? We decided to go back to the cafe where we would normally play Mismatch, but not for any dating this time, but just to chat with Machiko from all the way back in SUBSTORY 7. After becoming the app's #1 user and giving her 3 gifts, she tells him that there probably isn't anyone left in the user base who could keep up with him. She says he's probably no longer satisfied with the women he's been meeting recently. Someone as experienced as him needs someone with equal dating experience. And after all, it is her job to cater to even her most exceptional clients, like him. He tries interjecting since he doesn't feel this way at all, but she tells him she'll have him singing in a different tune soon enough. She said she can find him the perfect partner. This woman she speaks of is someone he already knows quite well, someone he's shown great interest in, an elegant and lovely Japanese woman whose name ends with Ko. Kasuga starts getting ideas of who it could be, and this woman sounds a lot like the one he's been crushing on throughout the entire game. So he tells Machiko he's very eager to meet this woman. She told him to head to a hotel and she'll handle the rest. This is it. Kasuga will finally get a chance to talk to this girl he's been so infatuated with. Machiko, she's the woman. She tells him she's watched with rapture as he's become the most urbane and distinguished man she's ever known. Then, out of nowhere, she just leaps on Kasuga and they get busy. She seems satisfied, and Kasuga reflected on matchmaking apps, how they can really suck you in. Over at a burger joint, Chitose, the one from Poundmates, called us over to give us a little gift. We thank her and tell her that we'll keep taking on the world together. She seemed to get a little excited about this idea. Just like the other girls, we gave her 3 gifts and eventually she called us over again. When we got there, she asked to go somewhere more private. Alright, this isn't the nicest spot, but at least it isn't crowded. Kasuga asked what this is all about, and she reminded him of the time he told her that he wanted to take on the world together. She's been thinking long and hard about this, and she let her heart decide. She is going to marry Kasuga. Kasuga was rightfully confused, which made Chitose question if he doesn't love her. I mean, it's true, but he can't say that. It turns out that she took the whole taking on the world together thing as a proposal, and after that, it didn't matter what Kasuga said. She rushed up to him, and you know what's about to happen by now. Afterwards, she starts planning out their entire lives together, but Kasuga stops her to tell her that he meant taking on the world in terms of Poundmates, not like life. Marriage was never on the table. This made her pissed, thinking that he was two-timing her, which is when someone comes from above. Gary Buster Holmes, Chitose's dad, jumped down to personally beat Kasuga's ass after making his daughter cry. Luckily, she's still open to being our Poundmate though. After donating lots of money to Julie's Gearworks, as well as giving her 3 gifts, she thanks us for the help. She's always been confident in her abilities, but has been embarrassed by her lack of education. She never had the money or inclination to go to trade school anyway, so we really helped her out. She starts thinking of ways to pay us back, but we say there's nothing to worry about. Kasuga's happy to support the talent of a young, brilliant mechanic. So many kids give up on their passions, which breaks his heart. If he can stop that from happening with Julie, he's satisfied. Julie was very grateful for him. Maybe too grateful, as she rushed up to him. She said she knows he's satisfied, but she won't accept that. She wanted to give him his money's worth and try some of the stuff in the book she's read, things she can only do with him. Julie said it was her first time doing it, so she might not know how all the equipment works. She had him lay down on the table and fully bolted him down. She then pulls out hella tools and says not to worry, since she'll be gentle. Julie found the experience fascinating, wondering what else a human body can sustain. Kasuga said he was repaid already, as the bartender rolled by, saying he warned him she was dangerous. It's also worth noting that this whole ordeal permanently increased Kasuga's agility. A fun little touch. The very final substory starts at Revolve, which is finally starting to feel like home to us. Chitose is with us, the one in our party, not the Poundmate. She agrees, and we have the bartender fix us up some drinks. He then has to leave to go buy some more pickles while we head to the washroom. So, Chitose was left alone with Kasuga's unlocked phone. She reads a notification he got, and when he was back, she asked him if anything new is going on in his life. Confused by this, he reads the notification, which said, "Hello Ichiban, thank you for all the fun nights lately. Your passionate side leaves me stunned. I never imagined that when we first met," and so on. Chitose questions him while he questions himself, wondering who would send him something like this. After all, it could be any one of the women he's been getting freaky with lately. Chitose is confused, since she knows he already has someone he cares about back in Japan, and she never took him as the type of guy who'd treat a woman that way. I'm given an option for what to say, and I just say that she's messing with me. She probably just sent him this to embarrass him, but then she points out the blonde woman in the picture, which we didn't see. Matter of fact, we've never even seen that woman. Then, out of nowhere, Julie walked into the bar, while Chitose was scolding Kasuga for being like every other gaudy tourist tourist who comes looking for a Hawaiian side piece. Chitose showed Julie the notification, which made her rightfully upset. But then, every other woman Kasuga knows showed up to Revolve at the same time, wanting to give him a gift. They all came to see Kasuga. That's when he was absolutely tossed outside the bar in front of all of them, and Chitose tells them about the notification from the blonde woman. They're all understandably pissed, even Alo Happy himself, as they all pulled out actual weapons and beat his ass. Battered and bruised, Kasuga woke up in the bar alone. That's when the bartender came back with the groceries, asking what happened. Kasuga's a little unsure of that himself, but he remembers a giant misunderstanding that led to his current situation. The bartender starts opening up about himself, telling Kasuga about the time he was involved in a shootout at a hospital, taking a fall off the roof. That's right, fans of the series with a keen eye might recognize him from Yakuza 3. Since then, he believes that whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. He says that Kasuga will come back from this. He knows it. But he still wants to know what led to all this, and Kasuga shows him the weird text he got. The bartender actually knows exactly what this is though. It's an ad he sent out for the bar. He told us to read the rest, and it said, "Remember, Revolve will always leave you spinning from the fun of booze and joy of singing. We're also available for parties." Turns out he was trying to improve customer outreach after going to a seminar held by a consulting firm. The blonde woman in the profile picture, upon further inspection, was actually him. All of the abuse that Kasuga suffered was all because of that ad he sent out. And that's that. All 52 sub-stories complete. Overall, I think that this game has a fantastic collection of sub-stories, some of the best in the entire series. And it was really fun seeing how they used the setting of Hawaii in them. It was even more fun seeing all these classic characters interacting with this new area, like Patriarch Gondawara and Sodachi. Some personal highlights definitely include the snow one, Mismatch, the restaurant one, and all the Sujimon ones. But if you have any favorites, let me know down in the comments. And if you made it this far, I really, truly appreciate it. But if you didn't, I get it. You know, I thought about scrapping this video so many times in the past couple of months, but I'm so glad that I didn't. The biggest challenge with this video was honestly just trying to avoid burnout. Originally, I was actually going to have each of these sub-stories as individual YouTube shorts, just because I thought that would be a cool way to present them. But as I got to some of the longer sub-stories, I realized that they just straight up wouldn't fit in the small time limit. So I just decided to put them all in this mega video. This is definitely my most daunting video project I've ever worked on, with the script being over 32,000 words. For reference, my last video was 1,500, so I've definitely stepped up my game. I didn't plan for it to get this long, and it was super hard to decide which details and jokes in each sub-story I should even include in this video. So if you were ever confused at any point, I do apologize. One of my favorite things about making these videos is storytelling. And what better storytelling exercise is there than telling 52 different stories all in one video? Are there a couple sub-stories that could have had better scripts? Yeah, but that's all part of the learning process. This definitely wasn't an easy project to work on, but the final product truly does make it worth it. Well, if you want to see more videos like this, possibly with other Yakuza games, let me know down in the comments. Anyways, thanks Kasuga.